Chapter 711. Ninth younger brother is trying to steal a peach to exchange a plum. The crown prince smiled and drank a cup of wine. He smiled and said, he does have some courage. Now that father is suspicious of him, he actually dares to come to the Eastern Palace to express his goodwill and try to curry favor with us. Looking at it this way, it was us brothers who had underestimated him. Then what does your highness think about the Ninth Highness's proposal to let your highness and the Shen family? The advisor asked. The crown prince put down the wine cup in his hand and a flash of light flashed in his eyes. Even though his heart is not right, there is a plan that can be used. I really need the strength of the Shen family. Shen Miao is a good chess piece and there is no harm in marrying her back. He smiled again. Since she is not bad, there is no harm in coaxing her. The advisor nodded his head. Your highness has decided to agree. The crown prince looked at the wine pot on the table. This prince will personally mention the matter to imperial father in a few days. After the matter is done, one will remember ninth younger brother's favor. As what Fu Xiui expected, after a few days, the crown prince really mentioned the matter to Emperor Wenhui. Emperor Wenhui did not immediately agree but also did not reject it. He looked at the crown prince meaningfully and finally smiled. Not bad. Zhen thought that you did not make any progress and finally you are aware of things. He then said, Zhen will consider it. After the crown prince left, Emperor Wenhui then said to Su Gonggong who was beside him, the crown prince actually wanted to marry Shan Miao. Zhen did not expect it. Su Gonggong said with a smile, the Shen family's young lady's talent and appearance are all top-notch. The crown prince's eyesight is very good. Forget it. Emperor Wenhui disdainfully said, Zhen is not brainless. It is just that number 9 had pointed out a clear path for the crown prince this time. What is the meaning of this? From his words, he knew that the marriage with the Shen family was Fu Xiuyi's idea. Su Gonggong was cautious and did not speak. These imperial family matters were linked with a death word, so he as a servant would not dare to get involved. But it is just as well. Zhen originally wanted to support the crown prince. Prince Zhou and Prince Li are not putting Zhen in their eyes and Zhen cannot understand number 9. With the Shen family behind the crown prince, he can balance Prince Zhou and Prince Li, and also control the Shen family's military power in his hands. Save Zhen's strength. It is just that. Emperor Wenhui looked at the scroll on the table and smiled before closing the booklet and stood up, set out to Kuanning Palace. When Luo Shuiyan received the message from the people in the palace to bring Shan Miao to the palace tomorrow, she was very confused. She thought that there was a problem on Shen Xian's end. When she asked Shen Xian was also at a loss. The couple was always very cautious when it came to the royal family. But he was cautious in his heart and did not dare to show it to Shan Miao, fearing that Shan Miao would be afraid. Even though Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan said it in a relaxed manner, Shen Miao's heart could not relax at all. The Fu family would never allow Luo Shuiyan to bring her into the palace for no reason. But this time he had no clue what it was. Pei Lang had not sent her a letter for a long time, and if there was a letter, she would be able to figure out Fu Xiuyi's next move. Shen Miao's heart suddenly moved. That's right, why did Pei Lang not send her a letter for such a long time? Even in the past, even if there was nothing major, Pei Lang would still maintain correspondence with her, but after such a long time, a faint guess surfaced in Shan Miao's heart. Could it be that Pei Lang could not write to her anymore? Did Fu Xiuyi discover anything? Her heart was getting more and more confused. Ever since she met that inexplicable crazy Taoist in Putua Monastery, Shen Miao's heart found it hard to calm down. She wanted to know who was the benefactor who had the fate of fierce dragon subduing the heavens, and also wanted to know who was the person who gave her the chance to start over again in her previous lifetime. But no matter how she thought about it, there was no clue and it made her even more impetuous. Chapter 712. Shen Miao involuntarily looked up at the window and saw that the window door was tightly shut. Xie Jingxing once said that in the future there was no need to open the window, and he would be able to come, but these few days Xie Jingxing did not appear. Shen Miao draped her outer clothes and walked to the window before opening it. It was the cold night wind outside and Shen Miao tightened her clothes. Suddenly a figure flashed in front of her as Cong Yang stood up from under the wall and looked at Shen Miao before asking, "Young lady is looking for master?" Shen Miao was caught off guard and jumped in shock. She patted her chest in annoyance and said unhappily, "No." Song Yang did not seem to have heard Shen Miao's words and continued speaking in a deadpan manner. "Master is currently not in the Ding capital, so young lady need not wait for him here." "I am not waiting for him," Shen Miao emphasized. "I am just taking a breather." Song Yang did not speak and Shen Miao thought of something and asked, "Song Yang, if I enter the palace, can you enter together?" When Song Yang heard this, he was stunned for a moment. Then he blushed and said, "This subordinate is not from the palace and is not familiar with the layout of the palace. If I follow Miss In, there will be no place to hide and I am not confident that I will not be discovered." Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Since Song Yang did not have the confidence to not be discovered by others, then forget about it. He thought about it again. No matter what the imperial family was up to, they would not do it openly in the palace. After all, Luo Shuiyan was there. Thinking of this, he felt relieved and said, "It's fine now. If young lady has anything to say, you can tell this subordinate and this subordinate will bring the letter to master." Song Yang looked at Shen Miao and spoke to himself. Shen Miao closed the window with a pa sound. Like subordinates like masters, they didn't listen to others at all. At the other end, in the residence of Prince Rui, Gao Yang and Ji Yushu were studying a map. There were many densely marked places on the map, and if one looked carefully, one could clearly see that it was a military defense map. The guard outside came to report, "Gao Darren, young Master Ji. Young Lady Shen will enter the palace tomorrow. Do you want to bring a letter to His Highness?" "Enter the palace?" Ji Yushu asked. "What matter is there?" The guard shook his head. Ji Yushu sighed. These few days one was busy with this drawing and did not help third older brother to look after Shen young lady. It would be bad if third older brother returns. One would not know anything and both you and I will be out of luck. "Hey!" He nudged Gao Yang. "You have people in the palace. Has anything happened recently?" "It's nothing." Gao Yang thought for a moment and said, "Don't bring it into the letter yet. He's busy with work and it's not good to be distracted. Since there's no news from Song Yang, it shouldn't be too serious. If something really happened, we'll just have to stop it." The guard received the order and left. Ji Yushu looked at Gao Yang. "Why do I feel that your method is not appropriate? What's wrong with it?" Gao Yang said impatiently, "Look at the picture." Ji Yushu muttered, "Anyway, if anything happens and third older brother asks why I did not inform in time, I will just say that it was you who instructed." On the second day, Shen Miao followed Luo Shuiyan into the palace. Every time he entered the palace, something would happen. Luo Shuiyan was somewhat vigilant, but Shen Miao was used to it. Because she already knew that the Tian family did not have good intentions, it made her less nervous. The palace maids brought them directly to Kuaning Palace. When they reached Kuaning Palace, the first thing they saw was the Empress, who was sitting on the main seat. The concubine sitting beside the Empress had a gentle smile and her clothes were elegant but simple. It was Consort Dong Shu. The Empress and Consort Dong Shu? Shen Miao's heart suddenly jumped up. The Empress was the birth mother of the Crown Prince, and had a conforming husband and wife relationship with Emperor Wen Hui. But the Empress herself most likely came from a wealthy family, and had a smooth journey. At the current stage, she was wholeheartedly focused on the Crown Prince's body, and had no heart to fight for power in the inner palace. It was said that she was swift and decisive, but at the end she could not win against Consort Dong Shu, who was the most inconspicuous. Chapter 713. Consort Dong Shu had always stayed out of the matters in the inner palace, just like Fu Xiuyi, watching the other consorts fight until their heads were broken and bleeding. Oh, naturally there was another point. Among them, she had unknowingly contributed a little bit of strength, and it was that little bit of strength that often pushed the matter to the worst direction. Getting someone else to do his dirty work? No one played better than Consort Dong Shu. If one were to say that Mei Foran was brazen and arrogant, then Consort Dong Shu was warm and gentle, smiling as she handed over a knife. So this mother-in-law and daughter-in-law felt like old friends at first sight. Consort Dong Shu looked down on Shen Miao but admired Mei Foran very much. Shen Miao looked at the situation in front and knew that the Empress would be used by Consort Dong Shu as a knife again. After all, Consort Dong Shu was the kind of person who would give herself a lot of benefits no matter what she did. The Empress smiled as she bestowed a seat to Luo Shuiyan but beckoned to Shen Miao to come forward. Shen Miao went forward as instructed and the Empress sized her up carefully before smiling in satisfaction and said to Consort Dong Shu, "It is a neat and tidy person." Luo Shuiyan was somewhat restless and could not wait to grab Shen Miao and step out of the palace doors. But as an official there was too much helplessness. She didn't know what the Empress was planning, but as a mother she had a natural intuition, especially when it came to people who had designs on their children. "How old are you?" asked the queen. Replying to your ladyship, this official's daughter is 16. Shen Miao answered. The Empress smiled as she held Shen Miao's hands. When Bengong was in the palace, one had heard that General Shan's daughter is talented and beautiful. He had met her at the palace banquet and found her to be extremely charming. Thinking of these few days of leisure time, I asked Shen Foreign to bring young Lady Shen into the palace to see her. She sighed. Born to be so bright and intelligent at the age of 16, one do not know which family's young master has such good fortune to be able to marry the young lady of the Shen family as his wife. Luo Shuiyan's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately clenched her fists. Shen Miao's heart moved, but she had already understood the reason why the Empress called them to the palace today. Consort Dong Shu also laughed. Isn't that so? She's beautiful and well-behaved, and doesn't have the slightest bit of arrogance about her. It's rare to see girls like her nowadays. I wonder if Shen Foreign and young Lady Shen is already engaged? The Empress asked with a smile. Luo Shuiyan's heart was conflicted for a moment, but she quickly replied, "I'm not afraid that your ladyship will laugh at me. Recently, I've been looking for a suitable marriage between young master and my daughter." If the imperial family had this idea, then one feared that they had clearly inquired about Shen Miao's current situation. However, he did not dare to lie to them. Otherwise, he would be making a fool out of the royal family. So it is like this. The Empress' smile became wider. Then how about Bengong be the matchmaker for Shen young lady? No, Luo Shuiyan said without thinking. Seeing the Empress's unfriendly expression, she explained, "My daughter is still young, and I cannot bear to marry her off. I still want to keep her for a few more years." When the Empress heard it, she smiled again and said, "Shen Foreign's words are not right. It is said that females cannot be kept as they will become enemies. If you keep delaying young Lady Shen's marriage, one fear that young Lady Shen will blame you in the future. Am I right, Miss Shen?" Shen Miao glanced at the Empress and smiled. This official's daughter also want to accompany by mother's side. She did not give any face to the Empress at all. The Empress' smile was not that refreshing. She stared at Shen Miao and did not know if Shen Miao did not have a brain so she dared to be so arrogant or if she was deliberately slapping her face. Thinking that such a female would be her daughter-in-law, the Empress' heart was not happy. It was Consort Dong Shu who saw that the atmosphere was somewhat stiff and smiled to ease it. Shen Foreign and young Lady Shen have a deep relationship between mother and daughter that makes one envious. But she changed the topic of conversation. Females would always have to marry. It is not that after marriage one cannot have a deep relationship. Chapter 7:14. These words were said to smooth things over, but unfortunately Luo Shuiyan and Shen Miao did not continue Consort Dong Shu's words. Consort Dong Shu's heart was somewhat surprised. Previously when Shen Miao was infatuated with Fu Xiuyi, Consort Dong Shu thought that Shen Miao was a brainless idiot female, but after looking at it, she felt that it was not the case. One felt that Shen Miao was after all somewhat intelligent and was able to distinguish between what was important and what was not. Who knew that after seeing them today, they were indeed the biological daughter of Luo Shuiyan. Both mother and daughter were equally unruly, unmoved by force or persuasion. The Empress also did not seem to be used to deliberately getting close to others, especially when the other party's attitude was not warm. But today she only wanted to break in advance and let the Shen family be prepared. Actually, the Empress did not care what the Shen family's attitude was. No matter how courageous Shen Xian was or how much he loved his daughter, it was impossible for him to defy the edict. The arm was no match for the thigh. Under imperial power, everyone had to lower their heads. Thus, after a lukewarm chat, he let Luo Shuiyan and Shen Miao go back. On the way back, Luo Shuiyan did not say a word. Shen Miao was also thinking about her own matters, and this kind of silent atmosphere scared Jingzhe and Guyu as they thought that something had happened. Upon returning to the Shun mansion, Shun Qiu and Luoling had just returned from the Ministry of War, and asked the Empress why did she summon them to the palace. Luo Shuiyin vaguely responded and pulled Shen Xian back to the room. Once they entered the room, Luo Shuiyin told Shen Xian what the Empress had said to her in the palace today. At the end she asked, I see that the Empress' intention is to appoint a marriage for Jiao Jiao. What should be done? Shen Xian's face had long sunk as he said, arranged marriage? Why should my daughter marry them? Jiao Jiao has been raised by us. What right do others have to give advice on Jiao Jiao's marriage? I'm guessing that the Empress wants Jiao Jiao to marry the Crown Prince. Luo Shuiyin said today, both openly and secretly. She mentioned that the Crown Prince's health has improved and mentioned it several times. This was unacceptable. The Crown Prince already had a Crown Princess. If Jiao Jiao married over, she would at most be a side concubine. A side concubine was just a concubine with a slightly higher status. I didn't want Jiao Jiao to have to serve tea and greet other women after marrying over. Thinking of this, my heart felt suffocated. Besides, so what if the Crown Prince has a high status and a good character? With his body, I don't dare to hand Jiao Jiao over to him. No matter which prince it is, Jiao Jiao cannot marry. The foul air in Shen Xian's chest was unable to be released and he simply slammed his fist on the table, causing the cup to shake a little. You are afraid that if Jiao Jiao marries over, our entire Shen family will be involved in the fight for the throne? Luo Shuiyin said, that's right. In these days, these people have ulterior motives and once they are involved with the imperial family, the Shen family would not be able to escape in the future. That's not the reason. Shen Xian gave a long sigh. The sons of the imperial family are fickle and have many wives and concubines. If Jiao Jiao were to marry in, she would not be happy. Even if the Crown Prince becomes the emperor in the future, so what? Even if his body is healthy, so what? 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, 72 concubines, reign and do all over. I don't want Jiao Jiao to live that kind of life. Moreover, as you said, they don't really want to marry Jiao Jiao. My son-in-law does not need to be bestowed the title of prince or minister, and does not need to wear brocade hat and marten coat, but he must treat Jiao Jiao wholeheartedly. If he cannot do this, then even the heavenly king would not do. When Shen Miao, who was eavesdropping outside the door, heard this sentence, there was a sudden surge of warmth in her heart. In this world, there were still relatives who would support her unconditionally. They were willing to offend the nobles but were not willing to let her suffer a little grievance. One heard Luo Shuiyin speaking again, that's right. Since that is the case, Jiao Jiao must not marry into the Eastern Palace. It is just that when the imperial edict comes down, things would be bad. What should be done now? Chapter 7:15. Shen Xian frowned and thought for a while before saying, before the imperial edict comes, quickly marry Jiao Jiao off. However, in such a short period of time, even an engagement would be very difficult. He also didn't know what kind of person the other party was. No matter what, tonight I will get people to look for some young talents, and if there are some with good character, as long as Jiao Jiao is not disgusted, then settle it first. Shen Xian said, in short, one cannot let Jiao Jiao marry into the imperial family. Shen Miao did not know what kind of feeling she had in her heart. The voices in the room gradually became smaller, and should be discussing which young talents were reliable. Shen Miao straightened up and was about to turn around to return to her own room when she turned around to see Shen Qiu and Luoling standing behind her. Both of them were frowning, and one did not know when they stood there and how much they heard. Shen Qiu pulled Shen Miao and walked out. Until they walked to Shen Miao's courtyard, Shen Qiu and Luoling entered the room and let the maids out before closing the door. Younger sister, the Empress wants to bestow marriage to the Crown Prince? It seemed that he had heard it. Shen Miao did not intend to hide it and nodded her head. Shen Qiu slammed his fist on the table and gritted his teeth. You're going too far. Shen Miao laughed in spite of herself and said, how many people want to climb up the high branches of the Eastern Palace, but when it comes to you it becomes bullying. Eldest brother's eyesight is too high. In this way, the entire Ding capital's people are not able to enter your eyes. Shen Qiu unhappily said, Jiao Jiao, why are you so big-hearted? I am worried for you, but you are actually laughing at me. Luoling looked at Shen Miao and asked warmly, what does Biao younger sister think of this matter? Shen Miao shrugged her shoulders. One has to do one's best and know one's destiny. Biao younger sister does not object? Luo Ling's tone was somewhat inexplicable. Father and mother have already found a way out for me. Shun Miao said indifferently, as if the discussion was not about her marriage. She said, find some young talents that I find suitable, and quickly get engaged before the imperial edict reaches the Shun mansion. That will do. She smiled and said, don't worry. My taste isn't as high as big brother's. It shouldn't be difficult to find a suitable one. Shun Qiu mumbled, don't know which family's brat got the advantage. Shun Miao pretended not to hear it. Luo Ling walked a step closer and asked, if one is not found suitable, or before that, the imperial edict comes down, what about Biao younger sister? Shun Qiu said, Biao younger brother, how can you say such unlucky words? Luo Ling however was still staring at Shan Miao, as if he was persistent in seeking an answer from Shan Miao. Shun Miao smiled and said, then marry Mimi. Shun Qiu shouted, otherwise what? Shun Miao said, could it be that the entire Shen family have to bear the crime of defying the edict and be annihilated? Because of me, all my loved ones are implicated. Just because I was stubborn and refused to marry, my family suffered because of me. Big brother, is this what you want to see? Brother, let me ask you, if you were me, or if the Empress wanted to marry you, what would you do? You would also say that you would rather die than marry? Shun Qiu fell silent. If it was him, he would accept this marriage for Shan Miao and his parents. If sacrificing himself could bring peace to the entire mansion, Shun Qiu felt that there was nothing he couldn't do. Big brother will be like me, right? Shun Miao said lightly, not everyone in the world can do their own things as they wish. Everyone have their own choice. One will do one's best to know one's destiny, and I will try my best to avoid this result. If it cannot be avoided, then it is not a big deal. If one marries, then so be it. Shun Miao looked at Shun Qiu. A husband, a marriage, in my heart it is not as important as one's loved ones. But that is the happiness of your life. Shun Qiu's eyes were somewhat sour. He did not know why his younger sister's expression was so cold when she talked about marriage and husbands, and even had some disgust. But he instinctively felt that Shun Miao, at the age of a young female, did not have the expectations and dreams that a young female should have. And that was because he did not take good care of his younger sister. Happiness is to be fought for by oneself and not depend on someone to obtain it. Shun Miao said, could it be that marrying a good person can guarantee my lifetime of happiness? No matter if it is the crown prince or other people, is there anyone who can be sure that in the next few decades, he would not take in concubines and be fickle? I do not believe. Younger sister, you cannot think like this. You are not married yet and cannot think of others so scary and cannot see vicissitudes of life. Just like a married woman who had seen thousands of ships. Luo Ling however looked at Shan Miao thoughtfully and moved his lips but in the end did not say anything. Shun Miao's eyes drooped. Husband? Marriage? In her previous life she had suffered a terrible setback because of this. To her, this was a word that carried the weight of pain. Do not fall at the same place twice. Without expectations there would not be any harm. Her smile was cold. It is not that I am thinking too badly, but big brother is thinking too complicatedly. It is only marrying. Females all have to marry, and if one marries well, one would have a peaceful life. Even if one does not live well in the residence of the crown prince, I will not let the person who hurt me live well. Chapter 7:16. The news that the Empress suddenly revealed made the Shun family fall into an anxious situation. There was no doubt that Shen Xian and wife were not willing for Shan Miao to marry into the imperial family. The most ruthless imperial family, other than many political considerations, it was also because of the complexity of the imperial family's inner courtyard. If Shen Miao were to marry in, there would be intrigue and it would not be easy. Compared to this, glory, splendor, wealth and supreme honor were not worth it. Shen Xian had the intention to marry Shen Miao out before the imperial edict. Originally before entering the palace, because of Su Foreign's matter, Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan had discussed to start paying attention to Shen Miao's lifelong matter. Luo Shuiyan even ordered the servants to specially make a booklet, and on it were all the young talents in the Ding capital. The booklet recorded in detail these people's character, where they lived, how many people were in the house and how many places were in their hometown. Luo Shuiyan also beat around the bush to inquire about Shen Miao's intentions, and when she heard that Shen Miao did not mind this way of looking at her husband, she was relieved and really intended to help Shen Miao look for a match. The Shen family held great power in the Ding capital and was a very special existence in Emperor Wen Hui's eyes, thus it was not easy to casually pick the family. Shen Xian did not even consider those officials who already had monstrous power because it was to prevent Emperor Wen Hui from thinking that they were deliberately forming an alliance. Thus Luo Shuiyan and Shen Xian picked those families that were above average, did not have any ambition and were upright aristocratic families. Shen Qiu was a forthright person and had a group of good brothers in the Ministry of War that could help him to inquire about these people's character in private. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan had such plans for Shen Miao, but it was out of their expectations that whenever Shen Xian revealed a little bit of intention to marry, the other party would smile and decline. It was either that their son was already engaged or that they were not in a hurry to marry a wife. Shen Xian had a violent temper and also loved Shen Miao in his palms. Others did not fancy Shen Miao, but Shen Xian also did not fancy others. Thus he would brush his sleeves and leave. But in the end it was always this kind of situation. Those talented youths that they had taken a liking to with great difficulty would all find excuses to decline. One or two of them would be a coincidence, but if there were too many, it would make people feel that something was wrong. Shen Xian also sensed that something was not right, and it was a military general who was on good terms with Shen Xian, who told him that the current court officials knew that the imperial family had the intention to introduce Shen Miao to the current His Highness the Son of Heaven. Shen Xian was looking for in-laws for Shen Miao, but who would dare to fight for a woman for the imperial family? By marrying over, Shen Miao would escape the fate of marrying into the Eastern Palace, but it would also make the imperial family unhappy with Shen Miao's in-laws. It was all for self-protection. Even if the Shen family had a big business and Shen Miao was intelligent and steady, no one would dare to marry her. When Shen Xian heard of the news in the residence, he immediately flew into a rage and said that he originally saw that those noble families did not associate with the secular world, but did not expect that they were all cowards. It was fortunate that Shen Miao was not married to them. Otherwise, how would they be able to support Shen Miao in the future? When Shen Miao heard the information that Bai Lu and Shuangjiang inquired, she only smiled faintly. Jingzhe anxiously said, "Why is young lady not anxious? Now foreign and master are extremely anxious, and if this goes on, even if the imperial edict was not sent down, they would not be able to find a suitable person. The Fu family are not fools." Shen Miao picked up the hot tea on the table and took a sip. How would one not know what father and mother are planning? Shen Miao knew from the beginning that Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan's method would not work. As for how the news of her marrying the crown prince was spread out, needless to say, it was naturally the imperial family's doing. The imperial family practically announced to the world that Shen Miao was the person that they fancied. How would the officials of Mingqi dare to openly go against the imperial family to snatch a person? Thus Shen Xian and wife's plan to let Shen Miao marry out as soon as possible was destined to fail. Chapter 717. Hu Yu's throat was somewhat sour as she said, "Could it be that young lady really want to marry His Highness the Crown Prince?" As personal maids, even though Jingzhe and Gu Yu could not understand what Shen Miao was thinking, they could more or less feel some of Shen Miao's feelings. For example, Shen Miao did not like the imperial palace at all, and did not like the people in the imperial palace. Now if Shen Miao were to marry into the Eastern Palace, she would definitely not be comfortable. Shen Miao said, "Let's go and see." But in her heart she was thinking that she would never want to marry again in the imperial family of Mingqi. It was just an imperial edict that could control him and control the land. If it was really not possible, she would ruin her own reputation. The Fu family kept saying that they wanted the Shen family's military power, but they dared not show their true colors to the outside world. When Shen Miao's reputation was ruined, if the crown prince still insisted on marrying her, it would be too unsightly. Which was more important, a green hat or military power? From Shen Miao's understanding of the Fu family, it was definitely the military power that was more important. But if he really did not hesitate to wear a green hat to marry her, the commoners would not feel that the Fu family had deep sentiments but would feel that the imperial inner palace was in a mess. Even if the Fu family did not have the hearts of the people, they would not dare to let the rumor spread. It was just that, Shun Miao stared at the floating tea leaves in the teacup, and her reputation would similarly be ruined. Fortunately, she did not have any sisters and would not implicate her sisters to be ridiculed like her. Unfortunately, Shin Xian and the rest would definitely suffer the finger-pointing of others. But this was the last resort and also the only way. Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan did not know that Shin Miao already had her own ideas, and were still thinking about finding a good husband for Shin Miao. But the imperial family's message had already spread out, and even the Iceman did not dare to accept the Shun family's business. Thus the Shun family was recently deserted. Shun Qiu almost went to kidnap a good friend to marry Shun Miao. After being stopped by Luo Shuiyan, Shun Qiu, Luo Shuiyan and Shin Xian sat in the room, and when they talked about Shun Miao's marriage, their faces were filled with worry. Luo Shuiyan said, "This move of the imperial family is really too despicable. Previously there were so many people who wanted to claim marriage with us, but now they all took a detour. What is this?" "It's all my fault," Shin Xian said. "One should have arranged a marriage for Jiao Jiao in the beginning. One thought that she was young and it would not be a problem to wait for a few more years, but one did not expect to fall into the trap." Shun Qiu scratched his head. No matter what, younger sister cannot marry into the crown prince residence. A girl raised by our generals Fu, why should she be someone's side fae? We even have to pick and choose to be the main wife. How could she be someone's side fae? Now that no one dares to marry into our family, what should we do? Luo Shuiyan's expression was somewhat anxious as she probed. Why not go outside the Ding capital to look for a suitable family? Shin Qiu was surprised. "Mother, you want to marry younger sister far away?" Luo Shuiyan said in a bad mood. "I also have no other choice. One fear that all the officials in the Ding capital know about this matter, and perhaps it has spread outside of the Ding capital. One have to find some remote places that do not know about this matter." "No." Shin Xian flatly refused. If one were to marry far away, it would only inconvenience Jiao Jiao. Moreover, the mountain is high and the road is far. If the in-laws bully her, what can be done if we are far away in the Ding capital and are unable to help? Luo Shuiyan was annoyed. "This cannot be done, that cannot be done. What do you say?" Shun Qiu sighed. "In the end, these people in the Ding capital are afraid of implicating themselves. Could it be that there is no male who values younger sister more than his own life?" Seeing Luo Shuiyan staring at him, Shun Qiu quickly added, "Other than me and father." Just as he was speaking, one saw Luo Ling walking in from outside. Luo Shuiyan called him to sit down and asked eagerly, "Linger, have you found a suitable family today?" Chapter 718. Luo Ling shook his head. Shin Xian and Shun Qiu were somewhat disappointed. Luo Shuiyan also lowered her head and looked worriedly at the teacup in front of her. In the silence, one heard Luo Ling softly saying, "Gugu, Gufu, Biao older brother." The three of them looked up and saw that Luo Ling's expression was somewhat strange, like he wanted to say something but stopped. Shin Qiu asked, "Younger Biao brother, what happened to you? If you have anything to say, just say it. We're all family here." Luo Ling took a deep breath and said, "Until now younger Biao sister still have not found a suitable person?" Luo Shuiyan shook her head and said, "These people in the Ding capital are all afraid of the imperial family finding trouble with them, and can't wait to stay far away from the Shin family. It is really too difficult to find a suitable person who is willing to marry Jiao Jiao at this juncture." Then, Luo Ling paused for a moment before plucking up his courage to speak. "I am willing to marry younger Biao sister." As soon as these words were spoken, the room immediately became silent. Even the servant girls at the side didn't dare to speak and quietly retreated to the side. Shun Qiu and Shin Xian stared closely at Luo Ling, but Luo Ling seemed to have suddenly gained courage and continued to speak. "I know that my right hand is not good now, and in terms of family background and looks, there are many people who are better than me in the Ding capital, but I am willing to marry younger Biao's sister. I will always treat her well and not take in any concubines or tongfang, and only her alone in the inner courtyard. Moreover," Luo Ling smiled gently, "if Gugu and Gugu Fu are worried that there will be any movements from the imperial family, I can bring her back to the Shaochun city. Father, mother and great-grandfather are all there, and they will take care of younger Biao's sister, and not let younger Biao's sister suffer grievances." Gugu and Gufu will be able to return to the Shaochun city to visit Biao younger sister during the next expedition. Biao younger brother, you... Shen Qiu was speechless. Not only Shen Qiu, Luo Shuiyin and Shen Xian were also stunned. Luo Ling's words were said in a plain and simple manner, and there were no fancy promises, but it was in sincerity. Before that, it was not that Luo Shuiyin did not think about these two children, but seeing that Shen Miao seemed to only have a sibling relationship with Luo Ling, she did not think more about it. But now the circumstances were different. Compared to the Crown Prince, Luo Ling was the best ending. It could be said that Shen Xian and wife watched Luo Ling grow up. His character was upright and gentle and was good at accommodating others, so he could accommodate Shen Miao. He was also her eldest brother's son, which was equivalent to a family. If Shen Miao were to marry over, she would not have to suffer any difficulties from her father-in-law and mother-in-law. With Luo Lianying's and Madame Yu's love for Shen Miao, one could say that they would be biased towards Shen Miao. The most important thing was that Luo Ling could bring Shen Miao back to the Shaochun city. The heavens were high and the emperor was far away, so no matter how dissatisfied the imperial family was, they would not be able to do anything, so it was just right for Shen Miao to avoid the limelight. As the fight for the throne between the princes became more intense, the situation in Mingqi became more complicated, and the Ding capital became more dangerous. Shen Xian himself could not leave the Ding capital due to his military power, but he did not wish to involve his pair of children into the dangerous whirlpool. Shen Qiu was a male and had entered officialdom, so he could no longer escape, but for Shen Miao, Shen Xian always hoped that she would be able to lead a peaceful and smooth life. Marrying into the Luo family was indeed a good choice. Shen Xian stared at Luo Ling and his words were somewhat sharp. Linger, now you marry Jiao Jiao in order to solve the difficulties, but one cannot guarantee that in the future you will meet a young lady that you fancy. What will you do at that time? There was some probing meaning in these words, but Luo Ling suddenly blushed. His face was slightly red, but he still insisted. One would not meet a young lady that I fancy. The one that I fancy is only younger Biao's sister. When Shen Qiu heard it, he was suddenly overjoyed and patted Luo Ling's shoulder. So to say, you have long fancied younger sister? Luo Shuiyin was also somewhat surprised. Luo Ling's character was gentle and self-restrained and did not reveal his emotions. Even though he treated Shen Miao well on normal days, Luo Shuiyin thought that it was just an elder brother taking care of his younger sister. She did not think that Luo Ling would have such intentions. Chapter 719. Luo Ling nodded his head. You're really lucky, you stinking brat. Shen Qiu was suddenly slightly dissatisfied and spoke resentfully. Shut up, Qiu. Luo Shuiyin glared at Shen Qiu and looked at Luo Ling. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. Shen Xian and Shen Qiu, however, did not have a good feeling as their emotions were extremely complicated. Both father and son were not happy that no one married Shen Miao, but they were also unhappy that someone married. Especially Shen Xian. He felt that he had brought up his beautiful daughter to marry this brat in front of him. He felt that Luo Ling's nose was not his nose and his eyes were not his eyes. Shen Qiu said, I did not say anything wrong. If this matter did not happen to our Jiao Jiao, one could casually pick any of the Ding capital's disciples and it would not be too much to pick a heavenly immortal. Who knew that something like this would happen? Cousin got lucky. I don't know what good karma he accumulated in his previous life. Luo Shuiyin was furious. Brat, try talking nonsense again. No ivory comes out of a filthy mouth. Luo Ling smiled. Older Biao brother is right. It is my fortune to be able to marry Jiao Jiao, but... He said, one still have to ask younger Biao sister's opinion on this matter. If Biao Mei is unwilling, then there is no need to mention this matter again. In the end, he still had to respect Shen Miao's wishes. Luo Shuiyin and Shen Xian looked at each other and understood the meaning in each other's eyes. To marry or not to marry, at the end it all depended on Shen Miao's attitude. But with the current situation, one think that Shen Miao would not hesitate to choose to marry Luo Ling. After all, it did not seem to suit Shen Miao's preference to be a Sufei in the Eastern Palace. Moreover, compared to the Crown Prince, Luo Ling's appearance was handsome and his temperament was gentle and tolerant, obviously more in line with the appearance of a husband. Luo Shuiyin said, don't belittle yourself. No matter what, your uncle, your cousin, and I will always be on your side. Shen Xian and Shen Qiu were very dissatisfied with being represented by Luo Shuiyan, but they did not refute. While they were discussing this matter, a manservant suddenly came to report, "Master and Madam, someone is looking for you at the door." These few days, because of Shen Miao's matter, those people in the Ding capital who had some friendship with the Shen family avoided them and would not take the initiative to visit. Thus one did not expect that there would be people who came to look for them at this time. Shen Qiu asked casually, "Who?" The manservant said, "It's Madam Countess of Pingnan." Everyone. When Su Foreign entered the room, she did not expect Shen Qiu and Shen Xian to be there. Speaking of which, she was still a little afraid of Shen Xian. Because in the early years Shen Xian and Siyu did not have a good political opinion, Shen Xian did not treat Siyu well. Naturally, Siyu did not think much of Shen Xian, let alone Madame Su. This time, if it was not because of Su Mingfeng, Su Foreign would not be able to enter the Shen family's doors in this lifetime. Luo Shuiyan invited Su Foreign to sit down and Su Foreign greeted Shen Xian. Looking at Shan Qiu with a smile, he said, "This must be the eldest young master of the residence. He is indeed a young and talented man with extraordinary looks. One look and one can tell that he is not an ordinary man." Shen Qiu repeatedly said that he did not dare. Su Foreign then looked at Luo Ling and asked with a smile, "This one," Luo Shuiyan explained, "this is my maiden family's eldest brother's son, Luo Ling." Su Foreign's gaze towards Luo Ling was somewhat strange and asked without batting an eyelid, "Then does this Biao young master currently have a marriage partner?" Replying to Foreign's words, "Not yet." Luo Ling replied politely. Following that, he looked at Su Foreign with some puzzlement. Most likely he did not understand why this matron, whom he had just met for the first time, would ask him about a marriage partner, as it was somewhat abrupt. The more polite Luo Ling was, the more strange Su Foreign's gaze towards him was. Upon closer inspection, there was even some hostility. Naturally others could not make heads or tails of it, but who knew that Su Foreign was complaining incessantly in her heart. One did not think that there was such a young Biao young master in the Shen family. Looking at this Biao young master's appearance, he was sensible and well-mannered, so it was not bad. One had to know that it was easy for something to happen between Biao brothers and Biao sisters. Shen Miao was still young and not sensible, so she might be cheated by this Biao older brother. As such, would Su Mingfeng still have a chance? Su Foreign suddenly roused herself and was determined to fight for her son. Chapter 720. Because Shen Xian and the rest were males, it was not good for them to sit and listen to females, so they got up and left. Only Luo Shuiyan and Su Foreign were left in the main hall. Luo Shuiyan asked with a smile, "Su Foreign's visit today, is there any important matter?" She did not even send an invitation and was somewhat anxious. Luo Shuiyan had a faint guess in her heart but did not dare to think too deeply, and only thought that she was imagining things. Su Foreign said seriously, "The matter that I mentioned to Foreign a few days ago, what is Foreign's current consideration?" Luo Shuiyan was startled. The matter that was mentioned a few days ago? What was the matter that was mentioned a few days ago? Was it the marriage between Su Mingfeng and Shan Miao? Luo Shuiyan could not help but be somewhat frightened as she said, "Could it be that Su Foreign did not hear the recent rumors in the marketplace?" Even though she also hoped that there would be people coming to marry Shan Miao, and the more the better, so that Shan Miao would have more choices, but she did not wish to hide it from the other and let the other be unlucky, thus her words were frank. Su Foreign said, "What rumors?" Luo Shuiyan's heart hardened and simply said, "It is the rumors that the crown prince has the heart to marry our daughter into the residence." "So it is this matter." Su Foreign smiled, "I heard about it. The young lady of the Shen family has outstanding character, and looks that even the imperial family keeps thinking about her." When Su Foreign said this, there was no trace of shyness in her expression, and was even more magnanimous than Luo Shuiyan. Luo Shuiyan was somewhat unable to understand. Was Su Foreign's heart a little too big? Did she not understand the meaning of the imperial family's preference for Shan Miao, or did she not care at all? After hearing about this matter, "Are you still considering the marriage between the young master of the Su family and my daughter?" Luo Shuiyan asked. "Naturally one has to consider." Su Foreign nodded her head. "One cannot be so overbearing. One cannot only let the Su family fancy young Lady Shen, and not allow other families to fancy young Lady Shen, right? Foreign, our Su family's temperament is honest and sincere and not so overbearing." Luo Shuiyan felt that Su Foreign's thoughts were not on the same point as her, so she made it clear to her in detail. She said, "The Crown Prince has the intention to take my daughter into the Eastern Palace. Because we are both mothers, I won't hide it from Furen. My daughter doesn't want to be a side fae, so she wants to get married early." However, since this rumor had already spread out, those who had been looking for her previously tried their best to reject it. "Madam also understands that whoever dares to marry my daughter at this time would be going against the imperial family and angering the imperial family. I'm afraid they will suffer in the future. Madam Su, do you understand what I mean now? Do you still want to get married?" His words were sincere and he didn't hide anything. He directly exposed the disadvantages to the other party. Madam Su, on the other hand, slowly smiled and said, "Madam, do you think I am an idiot and can't even understand such a small matter?" Luo Shuiyan was even more confused now. Why did he still want to get married after knowing the disadvantages? Is the Su family not afraid of getting into trouble? "I won't hide it from Madam," Su Foreign said with a smile. "The current situation in the Ding capital is too complicated. My master often say the words avoid calamity, avoid calamity. Most likely he is thinking of not coming out to avoid these worldly matters. In the past 2 years, the Count of Pingnan's family had already withdrawn from the affairs of the imperial court. Speaking of which, since they had pretty much cut themselves off from the official family, they did not have to worry so much about doing things. The reason why I wanted this marriage was naturally because I know of the dangers involved. But who let Ming Feng like it?" Luo Shuiyan's eyes widened and cried out involuntarily, like? She had always thought that the words that Su Foreign said that day were just polite words or something that was made up to brush her off. Now looking at Su Foreign's expression, it did not seem to be fake. "Of course," Su Foreign said, "if it is not because Ming Feng likes it, why would I keep pestering Madam?" She sighed. "I have never seen Ming Feng like any young lady before, but know that this son of mine is a stubborn one. Once he likes something, it would be too late to change it. Since he likes Shin young lady, it would be very difficult to like other young lady in the future. One fear that he would walk into a dead end. It would be better to fulfill his wish." Su Foreign looked down at her fingertips. Because of the Su family's relationship, Ming Feng can only hide and not be able to display his skills in his career. It is already us who have let him down. If one were to not let him have his wish in the marriage, Master and I would feel that we owe him and would not be able to make it up in this lifetime. Chapter 721. As Luo Shuiyan listened, she gradually felt a sense of melancholy in her heart. They were both mothers, so naturally they could understand each other. She heard Su Foreign continue, "But don't worry, Madam. Although our Su family is no longer an official's family, we still have enough money. We also have many shops, so we won't have to worry about food and drink. After young lady Shin marries over, Master and I will treat her as our own daughter. Ming Feng's character is old-fashioned and honest, thus there would not be any other female in the inner courtyard. The population is simple, and even though Miss Shen cannot enjoy the splendor and wealth like in the Crown Prince's residence, she can still live a satisfied and free life." Luo Shuiyan's heart was moved. Madame Su's words could be considered to have hit the bottom of her heart. She did not wish for the person that Shen Miao would marry to be rich and noble, but as long as the other party was upright, had good character, treated Shen Miao well and had a simple mouth, it would be better. Su Mingfeng was really a good candidate. Thinking about Luo Ling just now, Su Foreign started to hesitate. Luo Ling was also not bad, but Shen Miao had to return to the Shaochun city, and with Su Mingfeng, Shen Miao could stay in the Ding capital. This time, due to various considerations in her heart, Luo Shuiyan did not reject Su Foreign immediately and only said to think about it. After Su Foreign left, Luo Shuiyan went to look for Shen Exine to discuss the matter. Of course, the most important thing was to see Shen Miao's intentions. Both of them were young talents, and as long as it was clear that there was no problem with Su Mingfeng, then Shen Miao would be able to take a look at her future husband. One did not know how this matter was passed to Shen Miao's ears, and when Luo Tan came to look for Shen Miao, she was overjoyed and said, "Biao youngest sister usually do not leave the house, but one did not think that fragrant wine does not fear deep alleys. You see, older brother Ling and young master Su came over, and there is also that crown prince. This is a total of 3 peach blossoms. In the eyes of others, I'm afraid they would die of envy." Shen Miao felt very helpless. Luo Ling actually proposed to marry her at this time. Of course, what Shen Miao did not expect was that Su Furen would actually come over and help Su Mingfeng to grasp this marriage. The matter of Su Furen wanting to marry into the Shen family had already made Shen Miao suspicious. One feared that Su Mingfeng wanted to investigate Xie Jingxing's identity. Now at this stage, the Su family did not hesitate to become enemies with the imperial family to marry her. Shen Miao felt that Su Mingfeng was a dangerous person. She thought that it was best to hand Su Mingfeng's matter over to Xie Jingxing to resolve, but Shen Miao glanced at the window. She did not know when this person would return. It was in troubled times, and yet he chose to disappear at this time. Without any reason, Shen Miao was somewhat dissatisfied in her heart. Luo Tan continued. Previously, when we were hanging the red rope on the tree of cultivating destinies in Putua Temple, the red rope that Biao youngest sister threw was at a good place. At that time I took a look. There were a lot of side branches extending towards the red rope. I am afraid they are the peach blossoms of today. I think these 3 peach blossoms are not enough, maybe there are 6, 7 or 8 more. Shen Miao said as she picked up the teacup. Do you think that one is cutting window flowers and one can have as many as one want? Luo Ling had a kind character and the Su family was a wonderful family. It was already rare to find 2 people who were not afraid of becoming enemies with the imperial family, so how could there be others? But thinking of what that crazy Taoist said before, one feared that there would be difficulties with peach blossoms. One's heart could not help but jump. Could it be that the Taoist was right? Luo Tan continued to talk to herself, but Biao youngest sister's red rope finally landed on a high branch, and that high branch should be your final destination. One do not know who is my brother-in-law? Shen Miao took a sip of tea and absent-mindedly listened to Luo Tan's serious nonsense. It would be good if it was Prince Rui. Luo Tan clapped her hands. Then I will rise with the tide and be Prince Rui's sister-in-law. Shen Miao was drinking tea and sprayed out a mouthful of tea and almost choked herself. But one did not expect that Luo Tan's words would come true. Shen Miao's peach blossoms did not come, but when they came it was astonishing. Merely 3 was indeed underestimated. Chapter 722. On the morning of the second day, a special guest came to the Shen mansion. The person who came was not someone else but Feng and Ning. Ever since the matter of Shen Miao and Luo Tan being kidnapped, Feng and Ning really took the initiative to visit and apologize. Shen Xian and wife were forthright people, and moreover the matter at that time could not be blamed on Feng and Ning and could only be blamed on those robbers. Even though Shen Xian and wife expressed that it was not a big deal and Shen Miao and Luo Tan did not take it to heart, Feng and Ning seemed to be very guilty. Other than sending people to deliver some small things every 3 to 5 days, she did not visit again. Most likely it was because she felt that she did not have the face to face Shen Miao and Luo Tan. Luo Tan sent an invitation to Feng and Ning, which Feng and Ning tactfully rejected. One did not expect that she would take the initiative to visit today. When Luo Tan heard that Feng and Ning came, she was very happy and pulled Shen Miao to the front hall. In the Ding capital, other than Shen Miao, Feng and Ning was Luo Tan's only friend. Out of the 2 of them, one was bold and straightforward while the other was forthright and uninhibited. They were like-minded. Because of the previous matter, Luo Tan had not seen Feng and Ning for a long time and was somewhat impatient. When they reached the main hall, one really saw Luo Shuiyan talking to Feng and Ning. Feng and Ning was wearing a moon-white short coat and skirt. Her hair was combed into a bun and she wore pearl earrings and colored glass hairpin, looking much more quiet than usual. Luo Tan was the first to call out, Feng and Ning, and ran over. But Shen Miao noticed that in the position beside Feng and Ning, there was a young man in his early 20s. This young man had delicate features and was wearing a green robe that fitted his body. He had a gentle demeanor and was very courteous. Seeing that Shen Miao was looking at him, he nodded his head to Shen Miao with a very thorough etiquette. There were some similarities between his brows and Feng and Ning's. Luo Tan then noticed that there was another person and said, "This is." Luo Shuiyan was somewhat embarrassed as it was not in accordance with the rules to let 2 young ladies meet an outsider without rhyme or reason. But thinking of the reason why Feng and Ning came today, she felt somewhat awkward and one could not tell if she was happy or worried. It was Feng and Ning who took the initiative to say, "This is my older brother." Shen Miao suddenly understood. Only Feng Aning and her eldest brother Feng Zixian were Feng Di's children. This must be her big brother Feng Zixian. Feng Zixian stood up and cupped his hands towards Shen Miao and Luotan. Shen Miao and Luotan quickly returned the greeting. Luotan looked at Feng Zixian with some doubts before looking at Feng Aning and asked, "Aning, did you not come here today to play with us?" If Feng Aning was here to look for Shen Miao and Luotan, she would not have brought Feng Zixian over. However, this was also very surprising. He did not understand what Feng Aning meant. Feng Aning did not speak and only looked at Feng Zixian. Feng Zixian's expression was slightly embarrassed, but he still took the initiative to speak. "Today one came over because one heard that the Ministry of War's Shanqiu brother mentioned that your residence is looking for a son-in-law. This one is bold enough to recommend myself. Would young lady and foreign be magnanimous enough to forgive the rudeness?" Finishing, his face was slightly red as he avoided Luotan's probing gaze. Luo Shuiyin was a little embarrassed, but her eyes were filled with joy. Luotan's mouth was wide open, as she did not expect that the other party would come with such intentions. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment and was unable to describe the feeling in her heart. The words that this Feng Zixian said could be said to be very bold. But for those who came up to talk about matchmaking, they would either invite an Iceman to lobby or their own parents would come over to take a look. There were very few who came over personally. But even though he came over personally, he invited an elder to the side and did not lose his etiquette. If this was spread out, no one would say anything about Shen Miao's innocence. He was a person who understood the rules very well. Chapter 723. Shen Miao did not speak, but Feng Aning took the initiative to speak. She glanced at Shen Miao. The usually arrogant Feng Aning had now put away the arrogance in her bones. Most likely she was still feeling guilty about the previous matter as her tone had some probing to please. She said, "We have heard of the rumors. Now the officials in the Ding capital have some fear, but marrying into the Eastern Palace is not the best choice for you. It is better to marry my eldest brother. My eldest brother's literary and military strategies are not bad and his temperament is upright and outspoken. If you are to marry into our residence, I will help you and take care of everything." Feng Aning had always had the temperament of not beating around the bush. These words were said honestly, but it was really for Shen Miao's sake. Luo Shuiyan's expression softened a lot. Shen Miao asked, "Do Feng Foreign and Master Feng know about this matter?" Feng Aning hesitated for a moment before saying, "Initially father did not agree, but after our persuasion, he followed our temperament. My father has a sharp mouth but a soft heart. It is only that his mouth is stubborn, but he is very loyal. He will definitely not obstruct this matter." Shen Miao did not doubt this point. She only saw Feng Aning's one-track mind and did not know how to play tricks, so she knew that Master Feng looked smart but was actually not so. She then looked at Feng Zixian and asked, "Does Gentleman Feng also feel that I am pitiful and want to lend a helping hand? That's why he married me?" When the words were said, everyone was surprised. Luo Shuiyin was surprised that when Shen Miao was facing a lifelong matter, there was no shyness or any other emotions at all. It was somewhat strange for her to treat it so calmly. Feng Zixian did not think that Shen Miao would ask this question so straightforwardly. He quickly recovered to his senses and said, "My younger sister had mentioned about young lady many times before. Zixian admires young lady's talent and temperament. This time it is only a coincidence and dare not say that one would lend a helping hand." Finishing, his face turned redder. Luotan laughed when she heard it, but Shen Miao was somewhat powerless. She did not know how Feng Aning usually described herself to Feng Zixian, that she even said, talent and temperament. Feng Aning looked nervously at Shen Miao and asked, "My eldest brother is definitely better than the crown prince." Shen Miao almost laughed. If these words were heard by others, one would say that Feng Aning was being disrespectful. But for Feng Aning to say such words, it meant that she really placed her in her heart. Shen Miao then looked at Feng Zixian, who looked similar to Feng Aning. His brows were magnanimous and should be an upright person. Shen Miao smiled. "One cannot decide my marriage in just a few short sentences. This is too unfair to me, and unfair to young Master Feng." When Luo Shuiyin heard Shen Miao's words, she had some thoughts in her heart. Shen Miao's meaning was obviously that she had other thoughts about her marriage. But as a mother, She did not know what Shen Miao's intentions were. Shen Miao was not willing to marry into the Eastern Palace, and did not seem to be interested in these young talents. That Luo Shuiyan was somewhat anxious. One thought that no one would dare to go against the imperial family and come to the Shen mansion to propose, but one did not expect that there would be 3 of them: Luo Ling, Su Mingfeng and Feng Zixian. Any one of them would be satisfactory. But Shen Miao did not see anything special about anyone. Feng and Ning said, "But if you are not anxious, then there is no time." These words were not false. Who knew when the imperial edict would come down? If it was in the past, naturally there would be a lot of time for Shen Miao to think clearly, but now that the imperial edict came down, there was no room for maneuver. Shen Miao waved her hands and was about to speak when she suddenly saw Jingzhe rushing in from outside and said anxiously, "Young lady, people from the palace have arrived." Chapter 724. Luo Shuiyan's face instantly turned snow-white. Not daring to let others discover that the Feng siblings were here, Luo Shuiyan brought Shen Miao to the front hall to greet them. When the young eunuch finished speaking, one then knew that it was not an imperial edict but for Shen Miao to enter the palace alone tomorrow, as the Empress had something to say to Shen Miao. After the eunuch left, Luo Shuiyan's expression became extremely ugly. Although there was no imperial edict, it was not much better. Tomorrow Shen Miao would enter the palace alone, and if the matter of the imperial edict was raised at that time, it would not be easy for Shen Miao to refuse. Even if she didn't mention it, who knew what kind of threatening words the Empress would say? It was a sinister thing to let Shen Miao meet the Empress alone. Feng and Ning and Feng Zixian were somewhat worried, but Shen Miao advised them not to take it to heart. After the Feng siblings left, Luo Tan then asked, "Biao youngest sister, what to do now? Why don't we settle the marriage in the near future?" Marriage is not something that can be settled in one night. One still need to exchange the 8 characters and invite the ice person to the scene. There are many matters and it would be too late before tomorrow, Shen Miao said. Luo Tan was startled, so there are so many things. She then said, "Youngest Biao sister knows everything clearly." Shen Miao paused for a moment. Naturally, she was clear that in her previous life, she was filled with joy as she watched all these things being completed one by one, and could not wait to marry into the residence of the person she admired earlier. However, he did not know that it was a tomb that devoured people without spitting out their bones. Luo Shuiyan looked at Shen Miao seriously. "Jiao Jiao, tell mother, among these few people, who do you like?" "It can't be considered as liking." Shen Miao smiled. "Choose the most suitable one." "Mother, you don't have to be too anxious. It won't be too late to decide when I return from the palace tomorrow. Perhaps there will be more suitable people appearing." Luo Shuiyan was startled. Shen Miao was always indifferent to her marriage and did not seem to have any expectations towards her future husband, which made Luo Shuiyan's heart somewhat flustered. It was until after Shen Miao left that he muttered to himself, "Could it be that Jiao Jiao still has feelings for Prince Ding?" Shen Miao did not know of Luo Shuiyan's thoughts at all. She had already prepared for the worst, which was to perish together with the royal family. She had the determination to be a martyr, but she did not know if the Fu family had the intention to abandon their reputation. Even in the worst-case scenario, he couldn't lose hope. After all, he was still alive, right? As she was thinking like this, she glanced at the window and finally felt a bit irritated as she instructed Guyu, "Close the window more tightly. I want to rest." The crown prince had the intention to take Shen Miao as a secondary consort, and this led to the current officials not daring to have anything to do with the Shen family. This matter was in an uproar, and since it could reach the ears of the officials, naturally it would also reach the ears of the princes. In the residence of Prince Zhou, the 2 brothers, Prince Jing and Prince Zhou, were sitting at the table discussing the matter. "After fighting with Old Six for so long, I didn't expect the crown prince to take advantage of the loophole in the end." Prince Zhou drank the wine angrily. The crown prince usually looks honest, but now he is smart. Prince Jing was calmer than his older brother as he shook his head. "I think that this matter is not only the crown prince's idea but also Imperial Father's incitement. Imperial Father was originally dissatisfied with us and Prince Li, so the crown prince is the rightful one. Imperial Father is biased towards the crown prince, so he wanted to give the Shen family's military power to the crown prince to help. Imperial Father is also muddled with age." Prince Zhou sneered. It is said that capable people do more work. That sickly crown prince did not even think about how many years he could use the Shen family's military power in his hands. Could it be that he would die before he could even warm it up and let others take advantage of it? These words were said very viciously, almost having the meaning of cursing the crown prince to die early. Even so, Prince Zhou's tone was very jealous. One knew that if the crown prince obtained the Shen family's military power, his strength would increase greatly. Not only would he be able to compete with him and Prince Li, he might even surpass them by a lot. Chapter 725. The Crown Prince had a unique advantage in reputation, and with the addition of the Shen family's military power, the odds of winning were much higher. How could Prince Zhou not be anxious? In that case, it is better to let that little girl of the Shen family marry to number 9. It is better than the Crown Prince. Prince Zhou said in a deep voice. Number 9. Prince Jing smiled meaningfully. Fourth older brother. Number 9 is not as simple as you and I think. You mean the matter between Shan Wan and the King of Qin? Prince Zhou was puzzled. No matter how I look at it, it seems like someone is behind it. Even if it was true, it was only because he had the ambition. To be honest, among the 9 of us, who doesn't have ambitions for that position? Old Ninth didn't want to occupy anyone. He just wanted to be the only one. He had the ambition, but he also needed the ability to do so. He doesn't even participate much in the affairs of the imperial court. Which official is willing to follow him? Fu Xiuyi and Shan Wan were very close in private, and had an unclear relationship with the Crown Prince of Qin. This matter was heard by the other princes and they were vigilant against Fu Xiuyi, but at the end they did not put it in the first place. There was no other reason, as Fu Xiuyi did not participate in the court affairs for many years. Even if he had the ambition, he did not have the strength. He was just someone whose heart was higher than the heavens and his life was thinner than paper. Compared to him, there were more important enemies. Prince Jing shook his head. Fourth older brother must not underestimate number 9. I always feel that he hides very deeply. Zhou Wang waved his hand impatiently. Why do you keep mentioning 9th brother? I called you here today because I have something to discuss with you. Prince Zhou lowered his voice. We cannot look on helplessly as the Shen family's military power falls into the Crown Prince's hands. If the Crown Prince obtained the military power and now that the imperial heir grandson has been born and imperial father has the intention to support him, the chances of you and I will be even smaller. I have been fighting with Prince Li for so long, I do not want to be taken advantage of by the Crown Prince. What does fourth brother mean? This marriage cannot be done. Prince Zhou smiled cruelly. It would be best if we become enemies. There are thousands of ways to form enmity. Which one does fourth older brother want first? Prince Jing asked. Of course it's a blood feud. Prince Zhou put down the wine cup and said, that Shen family's little girl also wholeheartedly thought of number 9, and would definitely not be willing to marry the Crown Prince. Since that's the case, we, the imperial family, will not force her to do anything against her will. Why don't we free her? It's not easy to make a move on Shen Miao. Prince Jing said, the last time Shen Miao was kidnapped, Shen Xian had doubled the number of guards for her, and it was heavily guarded. How can one take action? Prince Zhou smiled. If we can't do it outside, we can do it in the palace. He said proudly, once we enter the palace, no matter who the guards are, they all have to wait outside. Once we enter the palace, it's our world. I have inquired about it. Tomorrow the little girl of the Shen family will enter the palace alone. After she enters the palace to see the Empress, it will be our chance. It will be the easiest to make a move at that time. Prince Jing said, it is easy to take action in the palace, but it is easy to be suspected when one investigates. So this is a matter of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Zhou Wang smiled. What do you think about making it sound like old Six's work? Prince Jing's eyes lit up. The 2 brothers and Prince Li's faction had been fighting for so many years and were evenly matched. If this time Shen Miao met with an accident in the palace, Shen Xian loved Shen Miao dearly, and would definitely put the blame on the Crown Prince. If it was not that the Crown Prince had the intention to marry Shen Miao would not have met with an accident and the Crown Prince and the Shen family would be enemies. At the end, when it was found out that it was done by Prince Li would not be able to gain any benefits. To be able to take care of two strong enemies without using a single soldier, why not? Prince Jing smiled. Fourth older brother's idea is not bad, but it needs to be arranged carefully so that there will be more flaws. Men invite my aides in. Coincidentally, when the residence of Prince Zhou was discussing about the assassination of Shen Miao tomorrow, the residence of Prince Li was also racking their brains over this matter. Chapter 726. King Li smiled at the two brothers in front of him and said, "What do you think?" Prince Yang was a cautious and timid person, and when he saw Prince Li's smiling face, he could not help but shiver. King Li had always been a smiling tiger. On the surface he looked amiable, but over the years he had done many ruthless things. He said, "Isn't it too risky?" When King Cheng heard that, he said, "What's so risky about that? One could not really let the crown prince marry the young lady of the Shen family, and obtain the Shen family's military power for no reason. Sixth brother and Prince of Zhou have been fighting for so many years, but to no avail. That crown prince is sick. Isn't he afraid that he won't have the life to spend it?" Prince Cheng had always been careless with his words and did not care about the consequences. His words were very presumptuous, but it was obviously in line with Prince Li's intentions. He said, "Eighth brother is right. It is indeed not my wish for the crown prince to obtain the Shen family's military power. If this marriage is successful, not only me, the two brothers will also be implicated, and that cannot be done. I propose to assassinate the young lady of the Shen family to prevent future troubles. Even though the young lady of the Shen family is innocent, but in the end she was implicated by the crown prince." Prince Li smiled as he talked about the assassination. Even though his words were full of sympathy for Shen Miao's innocence, there was no trace of pity in his tone. "But how are we going to put this matter on Prince Zhou?" Prince Yang asked softly. Prince Zhou is usually presumptuous, and it is reasonable for him to do such a thing on impulse. Imperial father already had some complaints about him, and when he wanted to support the crown prince, Imperial father would only blame him for losing the military power of the Shen family because of Prince Zhou. Prince Li pondered. Killing two birds with one stone. "It's a good idea," Prince Cheng said casually. "I support sixth brother." King Xiang did not speak, but it did not matter whether he spoke or not. He and King Cheng were both followers of King Li. King Li's decision also represented the two of them. If they succeeded, they would naturally ascend to the heavens. If they failed, they would suffer misfortune together. This was what he had understood from the very beginning, to share weal and woe together. Sighing slightly in his heart, he could only hope that the assassination of Shen Miao tomorrow would proceed smoothly. The night was as dark as ink, and the winter wind blew on his face. It was bitingly cold, as if someone was shaving his face with a knife. The water collected during the day turned into ice at night, and was left outside the house to dry. By the next day, the ice was stuck to the ground and could not be moved. In front of the window on the upper floor of the inn, the purple-clad young man stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His brows were tightly furrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. A snow-white pigeon suddenly flew in from outside and landed on the windowsill in front of him. There was a thin layer of ice on its body. Flying outside in such cold weather, it was probably extraordinarily cold. Xie Jingxing removed a small silver tube from the pigeon's leg, and threw the pigeon behind him. The charcoal fire was burning in the room, so it was warm and cozy. The pigeon tilted its body and flew to the desk in the room. It tilted its head and pecked the corn kernels in the small bowl on the desk. Xie Jingxing took out a small paper scroll from the silver tube and unfolded it to read. He threw it into the charcoal stove and turned it into ashes. Tai walked in from the door and walked to Xie Jingxing's back. "Master, the carriage and horses have been prepared and will depart for the capital tomorrow morning," Xie Jingxing replied. Tai, however, did not retreat and looked at Xie Jingxing's back, seemingly hesitating if he should speak or not. "Speak if you have something to say," Xie Jingxing said without turning his head back. Tai was shocked and quickly said, "Master, there is news from the Ding capital that these few days Shenexine is looking for a suitable young talent for fifth Shen young lady, and seemed to have the intention to marry." Xie Jingxing did not turn back. Tai looked at the other person's back and did not know why, but he felt his scalp tingling. He also did not know if these words should be said or not, and his heart was complaining incessantly. Ji Yushu and Gao Yang from the Ding capital did not mention about this matter in the letter that was sent back. Now that Tai Yi mentioned it, in the future when Xie Jingxing blamed the both of them, it would seem that Tai Yi was the one instigating it. Chapter 727. But if he did not say it, the matter was of great importance. If Xie Jingxing were to find out about it, he would have made a big mistake and he would not need to be a secret guard anymore. Perhaps he would even lose his life. Between loyalty and his life, Tai Yi very decisively chose the latter. He said, Su family's Su Mingfeng, Luo family's Luo Ling and the eldest son of the Feng family, Feng Zixian, have all visited the Shen mansion. Feng Zixian? The youth turned and stared at Tai Yi's eyes. Why did Feng Zixian visit? Tai Yi's back turned cold and braced himself to say, because Shen Xian is anxious to marry off 5th Shen young lady, as there is news from the palace that the crown prince has the intention to marry 5th Shen young lady as a secondary consort. The Shen family do not wish for 5th Shen young lady to marry into the eastern palace, and wanted to marry 5th Shen young lady off before the imperial edict comes down. The Feng family's young lady and 5th Shen young lady are good friends and specially looked for older brother to come over to solve the problem. When did the news spread from the palace? Xie Jingxing slowly asked, but his voice seemed to be coated with a layer of ice. Tai Yi did not dare to look at Xie Jingxing's eyes and his head was almost on the ground as he said, 5 days ago? The news from 5 days ago only arrived now? Xie Jingxing did not get angry but laughed instead. There seemed to be anger in his beautiful peach blossom eyes as he said, this prince do not know when did one raise a group of trash. The air in the room suddenly turned cold and seemed to be colder than outside. Even with the warm charcoal fire, the pigeon on the table made a goo sound and retracted its head back into its feathers. Tai Yi wanted to cry but had no tears, but he still had to finish the words that he did not say. Today the palace sent a message to the Shen family. Tomorrow 5th Shen young lady will enter the palace alone as the Empress has something to discuss with her. Before the words were finished, one saw that purple-clad youth's figure flashed and was already at the door. He casually pulled the fox fur coat that was hanging and said coldly, prepare the horse. Tai Yi was startled. Master, is it not tomorrow morning? Xie Jingxing coldly swept a glance at him. Tai Yi shivered and did not dare to say anything else. This night, the wind and snow intertwined and the cold air penetrated the bones. Some people tossed and turned on the warm bed and were unable to sleep, while some people were in the magnificent residence discussing murderous plots. Some people naturally lived in the imperial palace, and there were also some people who rode their precious horses thousands of miles away. Some rejoice, some grieve, some worry, some triumph. The vast rivers and mountains of Mingqi were picturesque, and the Ding capital was filled with songs and dances to celebrate peace. At the end of the year, there were cheers and laughter everywhere, but no one could see the turbulence under the calm lake. In one of the rooms in Prince Ding's residence, there was someone playing chess with himself. The man was dressed in a green robe. The chessboard on the table was in a mess. The white characters and black pieces were intertwined on the board. It looked extremely complicated. With every step he took, he had to think for a long time. It was as if he had reached a bottleneck, but he just couldn't bring himself to play the black piece in his hand. The flame of the lamp swayed slightly and was almost extinguished. He got up and refilled the lamp oil, and the room became bright again. This man's eyes were bright and clear, and he had the air of a modest gentleman. It was as if he was proud and unyielding in his heart. However, there was sadness in his eyes that could not be dispersed. This person was Pei Lang. Pei Lang looked at the snowy night outside the window and sighed deeply. Fu Xiuyi's move in chess was indeed not bad. Shifting the trouble to the east, no matter if it was a success or failure, it had nothing to do with Fu Xiuyi. No matter what the result was, whether it was the crown prince being unlucky, Prince Zhou or Prince Li being unlucky, or the Shen family being unlucky, it was a good thing for Fu Xiuyi. In this kind of chess game, Xun Miao had almost no other path to take. Even if there was, it would be the last resort. With this game, Fu Xiuyi would definitely win and not lose. Pei Lang was somewhat worried for Xun Miao. He also did not know why he was worried for Xun Miao. If Xun Miao died, then he would be able to follow Fu Xiuyi. Fu Xiuyi was very reliant on him, and if he did not see wrongly, this person had the talent to become an emperor. In the future, his chickens and dogs would ascend to heaven, and he would be able to enjoy endless riches and glory. He would also be able to better protect Luing in secret. But he was still not willing for Shen Miao to lose. These days Fu Xiuyi suspected that there was a traitor in the residence and doubled the guards in Prince Ding's residence. Even a fly would not be able to fly in, not to mention the news out. He had no way to communicate with Shen Miao through letters, and could only be anxious in the dark. Hearing that Shen Miao was going to make a trip to the palace alone tomorrow, it just so happened that he was also going to the palace tomorrow. Even though he was Fu Xiuyi's aide, he was also a small official. Shen Miao had no way out, and at the end of the road would there be any other way out? After a moment, Pei Lang looked at the chess game in front of him. It was already a dilemma and there was no need to continue playing. One of his hands was placed on the corner of the table and suddenly flipped it. With just a light flip, the entire board of chess pieces instantly fell to the ground, big and small, making a crisp sound. The ground was a mess. Nothing could be seen from the original situation. Chapter 728. Early the next morning, Shen Miao entered the palace. Luo Shuiyan and Shen Xian were worried about her, and let her bring a lot of guards. But the guards of the Shen residence could not follow Shen Miao at all times, and when they reached the palace doors, they had to wait outside. Before Shen Miao left, she wore all the big and small jewelry that Xie Jingxing gave her. Regarding the Ming Qi's imperial palace, she never feared to speculate with the greatest malice, and was only afraid that there would be an accident, so she was fully prepared. When she reached the palace doors, Gu Yu and the rest were waiting outside with the guards, and Shen Miao was led by a palace maid towards Kuaning Palace. Along the way, the palace maid felt somewhat strange. The path from the palace doors to Kuaning Palace was not simple, and one had to go through several corridors and some gardens, but Shen Miao was very familiar with the path. She did not even need the palace maid to remind her as she lifted her feet to walk over the old and loose steps. The palace maid's heart was suspicious. Could it be that Shen Miao came to Kuaning Palace once and remembered this path so well that she did not make any mistakes? She did not expect that this Kuaning Palace was the place where Shen Miao lived in her previous life, and every grass and tree was engraved in her heart. Thus, in the face of the grand furnishings and exquisite displays, she turned a blind eye to them. If one looked carefully, one could see a flash of disgust in Shen Miao's eyes. Others did not know about these. When they reached Kuaning Palace, the palace maid was combing the Empress' hair. Shen Miao waited for a while before the Empress let her in. Today consort Dong Shu did not come over, and there was only the Empress as a master. She was wearing some formal court attire and had a 9 phoenix hairpin on her head. Her makeup was expensive and there was a sense of oppression coming from her. Shen Miao took a look and understood in her heart. Did this really think that she was a young lady who was not familiar with worldly affairs, and wanted to use the imperial family's prestige to threaten her? Force her to take the initiative to let go? No wonder Shen Miao deliberately sent Luo Shuiyan away. If Shen Miao was really a 16-year-old young lady, dressed so formally in front of the Empress and with a few vague threatening words, she would feel that she was alone and helpless. Her heart would be flustered and she would not know what happened. But how was Shen Miao a young lady? The person in front of her was the Empress. She was the Empress in her previous life. She was more knowledgeable, arrogant, and suffered more hardships than this one. So, she really didn't care about the name of a fox borrowing the tiger's mite. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down and a humble smile surfaced. The Empress slowly frowned. Shen Miao's reaction was somewhat different from what she thought. She did not know if Shen Miao was deliberately pretending to be confused or was originally stupid. Her eyes landed on the bracelet on Shen Miao's wrist and slightly narrowed her eyes before smiling. This bracelet is of good quality. Come forward and let Bengong take a look. Shen Miao went forward as instructed, and the Empress held Shen Miao's hands. The bracelet was made of a rare jade material from an unknown place. It was bright green and extremely smooth. Just as she was about to praise a few words, she heard Shen Miao laughing, replying to your ladyship, this official's daughter's hairpin, necklace and earrings are also very good looking. The Empress was taken aback and looked at it seriously. Her mouth couldn't help but twitch. The cat's eye hairpin was matched with pearl earrings, and the pearl earrings were matched with an amber necklace. As for the bracelets and miscellaneous jewelry, there was no need to mention them. They were clearly all exquisite and valuable jewelry, So why did she feel so awkward stuffing them all onto her body? The Empress suddenly did not want to praise Shen Miao's jewelry, and even lost interest in the bracelet. Her heart was filled with indescribable contempt. Initially it was said that the young lady of the Shen family was an idiot who only knew about gold and silver. Afterwards it was thought that she had changed her appearance, but looking at it today, she was not the same as before. Once she thought of marrying Shen Miao to the crown prince, the Empress was not happy. If it was not because the Shen family's military power could help the crown prince, the Empress would not be willing to let such a vulgar female marry into the Eastern Palace. Chapter 729. The Empress put down Shen Miao's hand and said, "Bengong came here today to talk to you." She sighed. "That day I had mentioned to your mother that you are not engaged and your age is just right. Bengong looks like you and wants to be a matchmaker. Naturally Bengong will not force others and one must like to be a matchmaker." Shen Miao lowered her head and did not speak. The Empress patted her hand. "Do you think Bengong is living well? Is it glorious or not?" Shen Miao sneered in her heart, but on the surface she replied with a smile, "Your ladyship is living well and very glorious. Marrying into the imperial family and being pampered and protected by powerful people, every female would be able to live well and glorious. Bengong's luck is good. Now that you also have such good luck, do you want to live well and glorious?" These words were almost tempting. Shen Miao's lips slightly raised, but her words were humble and fearful. She suddenly knelt down on the ground and said, "This official's daughter is currently living very well, and do not dare to be compared to others and do not dare to be compared to your ladyship. Plead your ladyship to spare this official's daughter's life." The Empress was stunned. She did not expect that Shen Miao would have such a reaction. There were not a few people who wanted to climb up to be a phoenix, and the Empress knew that as long as it was a female, they would have some vanity in their hearts. She used herself as an example to tempt. Shen Miao was young and easy to be persuaded, so she was afraid that she would not be tempted. As long as Shen Miao slightly relaxed her mouth and followed her words, then the imperial family would be able to rightfully push the initiative to the Shen family for the bestowal of marriage. Even if one wanted to be a robber, one would have to cover it up a little. Who knew that Shen Miao would have such a reaction? There was no temptation, no hesitation, and instead fear? The Empress thought in her heart unhappily, could it be that it was so scary to be an empress? Or was it that this young lady of the Shen family was actually as timid as a mouse and as stupid as a cow? She did not understand her hints and thought that a disaster was imminent. Really mud that could not hold up the wall. In the following period of time, no matter how the Empress spoke tactfully, harshly or gently, Shen Miao always had a humble and fearful look. And it was precisely this look that made her mouth very tight, and not a single word could be pried out. At the end, the Empress was somewhat angry and asked Shen Miao to return, thinking that this matter would not work from Shen Miao's end and one had to discuss a new method with Emperor Wen Hui. Because when the Empress let Shen Miao leave, she was very dissatisfied with Shen Miao's attitude. Even the palace maids of Kuaning Palace did not care much about Shen Miao and handed Shen Miao over to a passing little eunuch to send Shen Miao out of the palace. The young eunuch naturally agreed. The little eunuch brought Shen Miao out of the palace, and after a few turns, there were many palaces in the depths of the palace. Other than some side halls where the concubines lived, there were even more small rooms where the eunuchs and palace maids lived. This little eunuch brought Shen Miao to a secluded place, and after bypassing a garden, almost facing an abandoned garden, Shen Miao stopped and said, "This is not the direction to leave the palace. Where do you want to bring me to?" Her hand quietly pressed on the bracelet in her sleeves. No one was more familiar with Ming Qi's palace than her, so she knew which direction was the most advantageous to escape from. That little eunuch was surprised for a moment before whispering, "Gentleman Pei wants to see young lady, Pei Lang?" Shen Miao slightly frowned. After thinking for a moment, Shen Miao still followed the little eunuch forward. Pei Lang had not communicated with her for a long time, and Shen Miao thought that Fu Xiui had discovered some clues about Pei Lang. But when she sent a Mo Qing over to inquire, he seemed to have seen Pei Lang in the residence of Prince Ding, and it seemed that he was safe and sound. If Fu Xiui suspected Pei Lang, he would definitely not let Pei Lang be so free and easy. Chapter 730. If Pei Lang was looking for her, It must be something very important. There were many coincidences in the world. What Shen Miao did not know was that the imperial family had the intention to arrange a marriage for her, and implicated everyone. Even though Shen Xian, Luo Shuiyan and Shen Qiu were relatives and ran around without stopping, some other people also rushed in wave after wave. For example, Luo Ling was able to express his sincerity. Su Mingfeng's marriage proposal by a freak combination of factors and Feng Zixian lending a helping hand. There were thousands of connections in the world, and those connections were like the crystal threads spat out by spiders. They were arranged in their respective positions, and one day, they crisscrossed and formed a fine and dense net, forming the most astonishing and unbelievable coincidence in the world. Princess Rong Xian entered the palace. Her health was not very good, and she had become thinner and thinner in recent years. Throughout the year, the number of days he would enter the palace could be counted, but today he seemed to be in a hurry. The palace maid wanted to inform, but Princess Rong Xian waved her hands and said, Ben Gong did not bring an invitation and have important matters to discuss with imperial older brother. There is no need to inform. How would the guards at the palace doors dare to stop them? Even though Princess Rong Xian did not show her face much nowadays, she was after all the daughter that the late emperor doted on and had a strong temperament. If he were to anger her, there would be consequences for him in the future, so he immediately let her go. The palace maid wanted to find a sedan chair for Princess Rong Xian, but was rejected by Princess Rong Xian. Princess Rong Xian said, "It would be inconvenient to use a sedan chair if walking on a small path. You guys support me, I'll walk slowly." Princess Rong Xian's heart was also anxious. She did not ask about the matters of the court and stayed in her own princess residence every day. If it was not that she heard the servants talking about Shen Miao's matter when she passed by the courtyard, she would not know that the imperial family had the intention to marry Shen Miao to the crown prince. Not to mention Xie Jingxing. Princess Rong Xian also wanted to protect Shen Miao. Princess Rong Xian herself also admired Shen Miao very much. As a member of the imperial family, Princess Rong Xian knew that when a female married in, it would look grand on the surface, but it might not be true happiness. Moreover, Shen Miao was not a woman who was obsessed with wealth and glory, so it was even more unnecessary for her. If she really married into the Eastern Palace, Shen Miao would not be happy for the rest of her life. Princess Rong Xian rushed to look for Emperor Wan Hui, hoping to change her imperial brother's mind. Thus he took a shortcut and walked on a small path. Shen Miao arrived at a remote pavilion. The pavilion was hidden in the forest, with its back facing a long corridor. There were a few houses along the corridor, making it convenient to hide. Pei Lang walked out of the house. The little eunuch stood guard outside for them. Shen Miao nodded her head to Pei Lang as a form of greeting before asking, "What urgent matter does gentleman Pei have to discuss here?" "Prince Ding had sealed the residence and there is no way to send you a message." Pei Lang said, "The idea of the crown prince marrying you into the family was suggested by Prince Ding." Shen Miao raised her eyebrows. Pei Lang saw that she was not surprised and asked, "You know about it?" "Guessed that it was his doing." Shen Miao lightly said, "With the crown prince's brain, why would he think of me for no reason?" Pei Lang was somewhat puzzled as Shen Miao's tone of voice seemed to be very familiar with the crown prince and Fu Xiuyi. But Shen Miao was an unmarried daughter, and did not have the opportunity to interact with the princes, so how would she understand the personalities of the princes? One feared that Shen Xian was not as familiar as Shen Miao. This deserted garden had once been haunted by ghosts, so no one usually came here. Thus Pei Lang was not worried that someone would pass by. He frowned about the marriage. "What do you plan to do?" Shen Miao was somewhat surprised. Pei Lang had always been a person who would only analyze the pros and cons and would not bring in personal feelings, thus it was rare for him to ask about her marriage. After all, how she saw this marriage was insignificant to the overall situation. Chapter 731. Shen Miao said, "Let nature take its course. You cannot marry the crown prince." Pei Lang said, "It is not important to marry or not." What Shen Miao hated the most was Pei Lang's determined look, as if he had grasped everything in his hands. Thus he could not see the struggles of others and would only do what he thought was right. She coldly said, "Even if I marry over, I might not live well and would use my own methods to achieve my own goal. The road is walked by oneself and every road has a different way to walk. Gentleman Pei would not think that there is only one road in this world, right? I do not mean what you think. Pei Lang sighed. Marrying into the Eastern Palace would allow you to walk your own path. But to use your marriage as the price, this is too cruel to you and the gains do not make up for the losses. Shen Miao's heart moved slightly as she looked at Pei Lang. Pei Lang actually said, to use your marriage as the price, this is too cruel to you. One had to know that in the previous lifetime when Wan Yu was going to marry the Xiongnu. Shen Miao once begged Pei Lang because Pei Lang was Fu Xiuyi's confidant and Fu Xiuyi would always consider Pei Lang's words. At that time Pei Lang told Shen Miao, Your ladyship, using the princess's marriage to exchange for the safety of Mingqi and the welfare of the people, is it not a good thing? Pei Lang, who was good at observing the world's overall situation, would actually put the overall situation in second place. Pei Lang did not notice Shen Miao's expression and said, The imperial family will spread the news and no one in the entire Ding capital would dare to marry into the Shun residence. Shen Miao said, So what about that? If it is not possible, you marry me. Pei Lang said. The air seemed to have become extremely stiff in a moment, but out of Pei Lang's expectations, Shen Miao's gaze that stared at him did not have any surprise or shyness. There was not even the slightest trace of being moved. Looking at it seriously, it seemed to be somewhat cold. She asked, What are you talking about? Pei Lang's heart seemed to be poured with a basin of cold water, making it strangely cold. It was obvious that he was only judging the pros and cons of the matter, but under Shen Miao's clear eyes, it seemed that some of his hidden wishes were seen by others. In a moment he became embarrassed. Pei Lang avoided Shen Miao's gaze and calmed himself down before continuing. Since you cannot marry into the Eastern Palace, you have to marry someone else so that you can have a way out. If you marry me, you might be able to resist for a while. Why is Mr. Pei helping me? Shen Miao softly opened her mouth, and there seemed to be some other tone in her words which made it hard for one to understand. She said, We only have a transaction relationship because of Lu Ying, or rather a master and servant relationship. I am the master, you are the servant. From the beginning to the end, I was the one who threatened you. If I was imprisoned, wouldn't that be exactly what you wanted? Following Fu Xiuyi is 1,000 or 10,000 times better than following me. Gentleman Pei helps me so much that if one did not know, one would think that you are sincere. There was a hint of mockery in her words, and Pei Lang felt uncomfortable when he heard it. He did not know why Shen Miao was sometimes polite to him, and sometimes seemed to be hostile to him. Perhaps women were fickle like this? But he did not know the answer to Shen Miao's question, because he didn't know why he did it. Shen Miao smiled gently. Even if I marry Gentleman Pei, it would be the last resort. What kind of identity does Gentleman Pei use to marry me? How would one explain to Prince Ding? You will not expose your identity because of me. Gentleman Pei is a good chess piece and I do not want to use it so casually. Moreover, she slightly raised her chin. Marriage and a husband to me are not as important as you all think. It is only a person sharing the same bed, eating together and sleeping together. Other than these, there is no difference from strangers. I do not care who to marry. I also do not care if one would be forced to marry. My happiness or happiness will not depend on this. Chapter 732. Pei Lang kept on shaking his head when he heard it. He wanted to deny Shen Miao's words as he felt that Shen Miao was still young, and did not know how important a lifelong event was to a female. At this moment she was only acting in a fit of pique, and in the future when she understood the reason and suffered, she would then regret it. However, when he looked up and saw Shen Miao's expression, he could not say a word. Shen Miao's expression was serious. She was cold and indifferent and had a faint weariness towards the matters of the outside world, as if she would subconsciously feel disgusted at the mention of it. She really did not care. But how would a female not care about the person that accompanied her for life? Pei Lang looked at Shen Miao blankly. When the atmosphere was in a deadlock, one heard a malicious ridicule coming from behind. Did not think that there was such an affair. Shen Miao suddenly turned back and saw that one did not know when two masked black-clad people appeared behind her. These two people were carrying long swords in their hands as they pounced towards Shen Miao. Pei Lang quickly pulled Shen Miao to dodge and Shen Miao shouted, Who are you? Shen young lady must not blame us. If you want to blame yourself for blocking the path of others. The two of them laughed sinisterly. One of them rushed towards Pei Lang while the other held his sword and headed towards Shen Miao. It was a killing move that did not leave any way of survival. Shen Miao's heart secretly knew that it was not good. She did not think that Pei Lang would find this place and it would be convenient for others to silence them. She pressed the bracelet on her wrist, but this bracelet could only be used in close proximity. At the critical moment, one saw two stones flying out from the air and without any deviation, hit the knees of the two black-clad people. Both of them cried out in pain and fell to the ground. Shwa shwa. Two rays of sword light flashed and two people suddenly rushed out and stabbed the black-clad person's sword into the other party's chest. Everything happened too fast and there was no chance for one to breathe. The two people that appeared behind were dressed as palace guards and looked at Shen Miao and made a bow. Pei Lang was about to speak when he saw a person jumping down from the roof. The person was tall and had a purple gold robe and a silver mask with a pair of peach blossom eyes that were as sharp as a knife. It was Prince Rue. Your Highness Prince Rue, Pei Lang murmured. He was smart and with a little thought, the two guards in front of him should be Prince Rue's subordinates. As for the black-clothed man who wanted to kill them to silence them, he didn't know who he was. Even though he did not know what was the relationship between Shen Miao and Prince Rue, Pei Lang did not dare to neglect and was extremely vigilant in his heart, but a polite smile floated on his face as he cupped his hands. Many thanks to your Highness Prince Rue for lending a helping hand. Prince Rue did not speak and coldly swept a glance at him. Although Pei Lang couldn't see his expression through the half-silver mask, he felt that his gaze was exceptionally cold, sending chills down his spine. Shen Miao frowned, but Prince Rue had already grabbed her arm and turned to walk out. Pei Lang was shocked and quickly called out, Prince Rue must not. However, the two guards in front of her suddenly blocked her way. These two bodyguards looked fierce and their bodies exuded the aura of a devil who would kill without batting an eye. Pei Lang was a scholar and did not know martial arts. Even if he wanted to help, he could not. It was Shen Miao who was being dragged and stumbled along with them. She turned her head back and said with a calm face, Gentleman Pei, go back first. I still have some matters with Prince Rue. Prince Rue's footsteps became faster. Pei Lang stared at the two disappearing figures. The two guards in front of him looked at him in confusion before they left. But there were still two corpses on the ground and Pei Lang could not stay for long. He did not know what was the relationship between Shen Miao and Prince Rue, but in his heart there was an emptiness in that instant. Chapter 733. Shen Miao's arm was in pain from Xie Jingxing's pull. Xie Jingxing did not say a word and walked very fast. She tried her best to keep up with Xie Jingxing's pace, but the other person was tall and had long legs. Thus she could not catch up and almost tripped over a few times. At the end, the anger in Shen Miao's heart rose and she said angrily, Let go of me. Xie Jingxing walked to an empty corridor before suddenly releasing his hand. Shen Miao was grabbed by him for most of the way, and when her hand was suddenly released, she almost fell down. After he stood still, his anger surged and he said, You're crazy. This garden was a little more outside compared to the previously deserted garden. Shen Miao was somewhat afraid of being seen by others, and wanted to walk out by herself but was pulled back by Xie Jingxing. He pushed her against the wall and held down her hands as he looked at her coldly. He wore a silver mask which revealed the fine contours of his face. His chin was beautiful but his thin lips were tightly pursed. There was no longer the cynical smile in his eyes and instead it was anger. He said word by word, Shen Miao, you only have this little ability? Shen Miao frowned as she looked at him. Xie Jingxing, however, reached out to hold her chin and forced her to raise her head to look at him. He looked down at Shen Miao from above, like a hunter looking down at his prey. Shen Miao did not like to be looked down at from above and struggled to leave. But she was after all a female, so how could she compete with Xie Jingxing's strength? That little bit of strength was like tickling Xie Jingxing's body. Xie Jingxing easily resolved her struggle and even slightly bent his knee to press against her leg, making her unable to move. But this stance was even more ambiguous. Shen Miao asked, What do you want to do? Xie Jingxing's tone was unable to discern whether he was happy or angry. Luoling, Su Mingfeng, Feng Zixian and now Pei Lang. So many people are heroes saving the beauty. I have underestimated you. Shen Miao did not speak. The strength in his hand suddenly increased and Shen Miao's chin was in pain as she frowned slightly. But that young man gritted his teeth. Do not care who to marry and do not care if one will be forced to marry. You want to marry into the residence of the crown prince? Shen Miao's heart moved as it seemed that the conversation between her and Pei Lang was heard by Xie Jingxing. What this person loved to do the most was to observe everything in the dark. If it was usual days, Shen Miao would not feel anything, but at this moment, there was some anger in her heart. It was as if someone had seen a secret that he didn't want to be made public, or if someone had seen his terrible side, and he was angry because he was ashamed. She sneered and said, "What does it matter if I marry the crown prince? Anyway, you know that I want to be the empress. The crown prince will eventually sit on the emperor's throne. Perhaps when I enter the eastern palace and fight to death the crown prince's consort, I will replace her and be the future Shen Empress of Mingqi. What is wrong with this?" These words were somewhat too vicious and Xie Jingxing's face became even more livid. He also smiled, but his smile was cold. It's a pity that the crown prince cannot sit on the throne. Shen Miao did not know where Xie Jingxing's inexplicable anger came from, but at this moment she was being questioned in such an embarrassing position. She felt very ashamed and wronged. Perhaps one would find it hard to grasp one's emotions under impulse, just like how she did not know where her grievances came from, but wanted to vent out all the unhappy things that she had been passively feeling these days. Xie Jingxing pinched her chin, pressed against her legs and imprisoned her hands. He was so unbelievably handsome that even when he was angry, there was a different kind of charm to it. That evil air lingered around him, making Shen Miao believe in a moment that the Xie Jingxing who was frivolous, careless and did not care about anything was only a part of him. The other part of him was cold, rigid, and when he was angry, it made one's heart turn cold. No matter how good the scenery was, it was a pity that Shen Miao did not have the mood to appreciate it. She said, "Even if he does not sit on the throne, it has nothing to do with you." Shen Miao looked up at him and tried to speak calmly. "Why did Your Highness Prince Rui come to question me? My relationship with you does not seem to be that good. What does it have to do with you who I marry or not marry?" When the words were said, Xie Jingxing smiled instead. He hooked up his lips with a smile that was not a smile and pulled Shen Miao's chin towards himself. "When you think of ways to haggle with me over every ounce, when you bargain with me about business, when you borrow my hands to kill, you are very capable. Why is it that until now, you only have this little ability?" Shen Miao's eyes felt a little sour. She really hated Xie Jingxing's current actions. However, she could not break free and hated herself for being so passive. She felt that her eyes were foggy and it was very uncomfortable. Xie Jingxing frowned and said, "You are not allowed to cry." Shen Miao's tears were about to fall as she felt extremely ashamed in her heart. She was a person who had lived for 2 lifetimes and actually wanted to cry just because of a few words from Xie Jingxing. What kind of appearance was this? But the grievances in her heart could not be relieved. She felt that her entire person had become chaotic. She was not willing to lose her face and had no way to break free. In a moment of desperation, Shen Miao glared at Xie Jingxing and said angrily, "Xie Jingxing, do not go too far." "Xie Jingxing?" An exclamation was heard from the bushes at the other end. Chapter 734. Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing suddenly turned back and saw a person stumbling out from the bushes. When it neared, Shen Miao's body could not help but stiffen and subconsciously looked at Xie Jingxing's expression. But because Xie Jingxing was wearing a mask, one could not see anything. That person was Princess Rong Xian. Princess Rong Xian originally wanted to take a shortcut to enter, but when she came to this place, she saw Shen Miao being pulled by an unfamiliar male. Princess Rong Xian quickly let the palace maids wait outside and followed up herself. If others were to see Shen Miao together with an unfamiliar male, one feared that it would lead to rumors. Princess Rong Xian could trust Shen Miao's character. But just now she saw that Shen Miao did not seem to be willing and was afraid that Shen Miao was entangled by one of the princes in the palace or had gotten into trouble. Thus she had the intention to help Shen Miao out of trouble. But it was not good to rush forward as it would be a misunderstanding. Initially she was far away and could not hear clearly what both of them were talking about, But after seeing that Shan Miao seemed to be about to cry, she anxiously walked forward and coincidentally heard Shan Miao's words, "Xie Jingxing, do not go too far." Princess Rong Xian cried out involuntarily. But one saw that tall and straight figure turning around, and it was an unfamiliar young male with half a silver mask on his face. He slightly nodded his head to her. Princess Rong Xian quickly walked forward, and at this time she saw that this male was Prince Rui. Prince Rui from the Great Liang. When he first came to the Mingqi and entered the palace, Princess Rong Xian had seen him before. But she did not care about these court matters and did not deliberately inquire about it. At this moment when she saw that this person was Prince Rui, there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. But just now when Shan Miao said Xie Jingxing, it was indeed Xie Jingxing. She did not hear wrongly. Princess Rong Xian looked at Shan Miao with some questioning. "Shen young lady, just now you called His Highness Prince Rui Xie Jingxing?" Before Shen Miao could speak, Prince Rui took the initiative to speak. He said, "This prince's name is Xie Yuan, little name Jingxing." Just now Shen young lady called this prince's little name. Shen Miao's heart was slightly relieved, thinking that Xie Jingxing's reaction this time was really fast and was always able to find a reason to brush it off. When he saw Princess Rong Xian's strange expression, he suddenly reacted and cursed Xie Jingxing in his heart. Other than relatives, only wives or lovers would call each other by their Shao name. She called Xie Jingxing by his Shao name, and who knew what would happen in Princess Rong Xian's eyes? Xie Jingxing definitely did it on purpose. Princess Rong Xian swept a glance between Prince Rui and Shan Miao before finally fixing her eyes on Prince Rui. There were some who looked similar, such as this purple robe. To be able to wear purple robes in such a noble and otherworldly manner, it could only be that naughty and mischievous youth who walked on horseback. But there was also something different about him. That unfamiliar, somewhat cold, decisive and ruthless aura that only a person in a high position would have. It was completely different from the youth in her memories. Xie Jingxing had long died. He died on the battlefield of the northern borderlands, with 10,000 arrows piercing through his heart. There was a sudden stab of pain in her heart, and Princess Rong Xian suddenly covered her heart and bent down. No matter how many times she thought of Xie Jingxing's death, she was unable to let it go. After Princess Yuqing's death, she treated Xie Jingxing as her own son. To lose a son in middle age, a white-haired person sending off a black-haired person, her sorrow was no less than Xie Ding's. Shen Miao quickly went forward to help her up, but that purple-clad youth stood with his hands behind his back. He lightly swept a glance at her and did not move at all. Princess Rong Xian's lips could not help but reveal a trace of a bitter smile. Yes, how could Prince Rui be Xie Jingxing? If it was Xie Jingxing, how could he be so indifferent? As if he was looking at a stranger watching her struggle in this. If Xie Jingxing was still alive, how could he bear to see her in such pain? Chapter 735. Princess Rong Xian waved her hands. "Why are you here?" Shen Miao answered. "Her Majesty the Empress let me enter the palace." Princess Rong Xian frowned and looked at Xie Jingxing before asking, "Why is Prince Rui also here?" Shen Miao glanced at Xie Jingxing and said, "When I came out from the palace, the little eunuch who led the way had something to do, and after waiting for a long time, one got lost and coincidentally met Your Highness Prince Rui. Thus one asked Your Highness Prince Rui to point the way for me." These words were almost blatantly lying. Just now Princess Rong Xian had clearly seen that it was Prince Rui who pulled Shen Miao all the way here. Moreover, Shen Miao also called Prince Rui's little name, so the relationship between the two of them was not ordinary. Princess Rong Xian was inexplicably somewhat angry. In the beginning, when Xie Jingxing brought Shen Miao to the princess residence, Princess Rong Xian thought that Xie Jingxing treated Shen Miao specially, and as she had more contact with Shen Miao, she liked Shen Miao even more. Thus Princess Rong Xian had the intention to matchmake Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing. If it was not for Xie Jingxing's death in battle, perhaps this marriage would have succeeded. Now Shen Miao had a close relationship with another male, and this male's name was also coincidentally Jingxing. It was like once things were taken by others, and Princess Rong Xian's heart did not feel good. She also knew that it was impossible for Shan Miao not to marry for a lifetime, but Prince Rui was after all not a person of Mingqi. Moreover, Princess Rongxian had lived for most of her life and could see people clearly. This Prince Rui's actions were strange and his entire body was full of danger. He was not a simple man, and if Shen Miao were to fall in love with this man, one feared that it would be too complicated. As such, Bengong will represent Shen young lady to thank your highness Prince Rui, Princess Rongxian said. But he tried his best to draw a clear line between Shen Miao and Prince Rui. Prince Rui nodded. Since the eunuch leading the way has disappeared, I have many palace maids. I'll have them bring you out. There is no need to trouble Prince Rui for the rest of the journey. Princess Rongxian added. This attitude was clearly to guard against Prince Rui. Prince Rui didn't say anything else. He responded lightly and left first. After Prince Rui left, Princess Rongxian then gave a sigh of relief and asked Shen Miao, "How did you get to know him?" Shen Miao did not expect that she would suddenly meet Princess Rongxian today, and even more did not expect that Princess Rongxian would hear the conversation between her and Xie Jingxing. She could not help but secretly complain. Normally Xie Jingxing's secret guards had good eyes and ears, and would even be able to catch a mouse running by. Today at such a crucial time, one did not know if they were blind that even Princess Rongxian did not discover it. She said, "One had coincidentally met your highness Prince Rui a few times and can be considered as acquaintances." Princess Rongxian looked at her deeply and said, "Since you are not willing to say, Bengong will not force you to say it. It is just that this person is not a Ming Qi's person and might have a plot against you. You are a smart young lady and there are some things that you have to grasp yourself. Even if you do not think for yourself, you have to think for your parents and eldest brother." He was actually afraid that Shen Miao would be cheated by a man. Shen Miao did not know whether to laugh or cry in her heart. Since the misunderstanding had reached to this point, it seemed that it could not be resolved. Princess Rongxian touched her chest and panted a few times. Upon seeing this, Shen Miao asked, "Where is the princess feeling uncomfortable?" "It is a heart disease that existed in the early years." Princess Rongxian shook her head. "These few days it is very serious." Shen Miao saw that she was in pain and vaguely remembered that in the previous lifetime, Princess Rongxian also had a heart disease and the imperial physician said not to worry too much, lest the heart disease acted up and the pain would be severe. She said, "The princess should look for an imperial physician to take a good look or go to the commoners to inquire about a doctor who specializes in treating heart diseases. It is very sad to be in pain like this." "No harm." Princess Rongxian waved her hands. "Bengong have lived till now and have enjoyed what one should enjoy and what one should not enjoy. This life is not a loss. Most likely one will not live for long and Bengong also do not want to be tormented." Her voice gradually became lower. After all, there is nothing worth to miss. Chapter 736. Shen Miao knew that she was thinking of Xie Jingxing again and did not know how to comfort her, so she could only say, "Little Marquis would not be happy to see princess like this. If he really cared about me as his Emu, he would not be so heartless to leave." Princess Rongxian put away the sadness on her face and patted Shen Miao's hands. "Bengong had heard about imperial older brother's intention to arrange a marriage for you. Bengong's visit to the palace today was to mention this matter to imperial older brother. Shen Miao, you are also not willing to marry the crown prince, right?" Shen Miao did not expect that Princess Rongxian would intercede for her, and for a moment she sighed. In the previous lifetime she tried to please Princess Rongxian, but all she got was Princess Rongxian's contempt and disdain. In this lifetime, because of Xie Jingxing's relationship, Princess Rongxian changed her view of her, and was even willing to fight for Emperor Wen Hui's decision. Even though Shen Miao knew that Princess Rongxian would not be able to control Emperor Wen Hui's decision, but she would remember this favor in her heart. Shen Miao said, "I am not willing to marry into the Eastern Palace, but princess need not force it. The matters of the world have their own heaven's will. Let nature take its course and the heavens will arrange it." Princess Rongxian smiled instead and said, "You are really able to see it clearly?" She said, "The time is not early, so I will not talk to you anymore. Go over there first and I will let the palace maids send you out." Shen Miao was sent out of the palace by Princess Rongxian's palace maids in Jingzhe, and Guyu who were waiting outside came up to greet her. They first looked at Shun Miao up and down, and after making sure that Shun Miao was safe and sound, they then said, "Scared this servant to death." After waiting for such a long time, one thought that something happened. If young lady did not come out, these servants would have thought of ways to go in and search. Shun Miao laughed. It is not a dragon's pool or tiger's den. How would it be so scary? But her heart was secretly thinking about the two assassins that inexplicably appeared today. She did not know whose people they were, to actually dare to kill her in the palace. But if one were to investigate if she died, it would only be harmful to the crown prince. If the other party did not want to see the crown prince being the only one, then it would be Prince Li's people. It was not possible for Fu Xiaoyi. The matter with Shun Wan and the crown prince of Qin had just happened not too long ago, and Fu Xiaoyi would not take the initiative to drill into the heart of the wind and waves. With his forbearing character, he would lurk for a period of time. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. In short, there was no good person in the Fu family. The Shun family and the Fu family were destined to be on opposite sides. It was either you die or I die. Since the other party was so ruthless, she would not show any mercy. Mo Qing stepped forward and indicated for Shun Miao to board the carriage and return to the Shun mansion. At the side of the street where people were coming and going at the entrance of the palace, there was a lively tavern. In the corner, there were people observing the movements of Mo Qing and his entourage. When he saw that Shun Miao came out of the palace safe and sound, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He then picked up the sword on the table and quietly left. When Shun Miao returned to the Shun mansion, naturally Shun Qiu and the rest surrounded Shun Miao to ask what the Empress said to her in the palace today. Shun Miao skipped over the matter with Xie Jingxing and only said what the Empress said to her. Everyone in the Shun family was once again worried. The imperial family's side was threatened by Shun Miao, and one feared that the days would be shortened by the day. One must think of a solution as soon as possible. Luo Shuiyan then thought of those few people that came to the residence to propose marriage, and wanted to ask Shun Miao's opinion. If among these few people, Shun Miao had a slightly better feeling towards any one of them, why not let it be like this first? After all, Shun Xian had inquired about it before. Even though they were not perfect, there were no problems in terms of character. But Shun Miao had just experienced Xie Jingxing's matter today, and her mind was in a mess, so how would she have the mood to talk about it? When Luo Shuiyan mentioned it, there was a rare trace of displeasure. When Shun Xian and the rest saw it, they looked at each other and thought that Shun Miao was disturbed by the Empress's words in the palace, and it was not good to continue talking. Thus they let Shun Miao rest early in the room and dispersed. Chapter 737. When Shun Miao returned to the room, the sky was already dark. Guyu helped her to light the oil lamp. Jingzhe saw that Shun Miao was in a bad mood today, and did not dare to stay in the room to disturb her. She pulled Guyu down and closed the door, leaving Shun Miao alone in the room. She was somewhat irritated as she combed her hair, but there seemed to be a nameless anger in her chest that could not be quelled. Thinking of Xie Jingxing's questioning words in the palace today, she could not help but feel even more aggrieved. What did her own matters have to do with Xie Jingxing? Could it be that Xie Jingxing still wanted to interfere in her life? But this marriage had come to this point. With the involvement of various forces and with the addition of Xie Jingxing, she became more and more helpless. Thinking of the words that Pei Lang said, Shun Miao's lips could not help but rise into a smile, but the smile was somewhat miserable. Which female would not want to marry a man who was in love with each other and grow old together? It was just that she was used to seeing the ups and downs of the world in her previous lifetime, and at the end the so-called love between her and Fu Xiaoyi was only her own wishful thinking. She had never really experienced what it was like to be in love with each other. But she knew that once one loved, one's thoughts would not be her own. She was not willing to be like in her previous lifetime, to foolishly hand the happiness of her life into the hands of others. It was very good now. It was much easier to control one's heart from the beginning than to let go of one's heart and then take it back. It was just that her heart was not comfortable. She sat under the lamp for a moment and actually did not think of anything. After a while, she blew out the lamp and climbed onto the couch to sleep. The snowstorm in the residence of Prince Rui was exceptionally big today. A kind of guard stood trembling in the wind, and even that small and sturdy white tiger was thrown outside the room as punishment. Today Prince Rui was not pleasing to the eye with everyone, and everyone in the residence of Prince Rui was punished from top to bottom. Even Ji Yushu and Gao Yang were locked up in the tower prison to face the wall. What kind of place was the tower prison? The people locked up were all vicious criminals, and to deal with these vicious criminals, torture was necessary. As the most cruel place in the MOU army, there were at least 49 types of torture. Many men with strong temperament went to the tower prison and came out after a few days, wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. When Tai went in for the first time, he also recuperated on the bed for a long time, and vomited whatever he ate for a month. Ji Yushu and Gao Yang, the two young masters with delicate and tender bodies, entered the tower prison to face the wall. The guards of the residence of Prince Rui secretly shed tears of sympathy for these two. Nightingale quietly poked Nanqi's arm and asked, "What's wrong with Master? Who provoked him?" Nanqi made a hush sound. Seeing that there was no movement in the bedroom, he then said in a low voice, "Fifth Shen young lady was bestowed a marriage by the palace. Master Gao and young Master Ji did not report it, so Master got angry. Shenyang Nan Shun Shun Nan, Nan Shun Nan, Nan was Nan Nan, Nen Nan. No wonder he was locked up in the tower prison." After he finished speaking, he glanced at the white tiger that was shivering in the cold wind and said sympathetically, "The heavens have taken pity on it. It's been fed well every day, and I thought it was no different from us. I didn't expect that when something happened, everyone would still be used as a punching bag." Hualong flipped her long hair and sighed faintly, anger surging to the crown for a beauty. In the room, Xie Jingxing handed the completed letter to Tai Yi. Tai Yi took a look and said with some hesitation, "Master, if His Majesty knows about the change of plans at this end." Xie Jingxing glanced at him and Tai Yi immediately shut his mouth and did not speak. It was definitely not a good idea to oppose Zhu Zi's decision when Master was in a bad mood. Chapter 738. Xie Jingxing put the other letter into the envelope and said, "What is going on at Pei Lang's side? Think of ways to inquire." He paused for a moment before continuing. "There is also Feng Zixian and Su Ming Feng." His brows slightly wrinkled and suddenly remembered something. "How is the matter with the medicinal herbs?" Tai Yi hurriedly said, "I've already sent someone to look for it. Once it's found, it will be sent to the medical hall immediately." Princess Rong Xian's heart ailment had recently acted up again, and there was a very scarce ingredient in the prescription that was only available in spring. Most of the medical houses in the Ding capital were bought to the princess residence, and these few days Princess Rong Xian did not have any new herbs, thus she could only bear it. Xie Jingxing sent people to secretly search for it with a large sum of money, and then conveniently sell it to the medical hall. As soon as possible. Xie Jingxing pursed his lips. After thinking for a while, he suddenly stood up, put on his coat, and was about to leave. Tai Yi was stunned. "Master still wants to go out? The debt is not settled." Xie Jingxing coldly snorted and left in a huff. It was already quiet outside of the Shun mansion, and Shan Miao's boudoir was already dark. It was obvious that she had slept for a long time. When Xie Jingxing arrived, Song Yang was sleeping on the tree, and when he saw him coming over, he was so scared that he almost fell down from the tree. She quickly got down and stood up straight to greet Xie Jing. Xie Jingxing looked towards the window and Song Yang quickly said, "Young foreign is already resting." Xie Jingxing walked to the front of the window and saw a jade ring-like thing placed on the windowsill, and below it was a pendant. Xie Jingxing looked at Song Yang with a questioning gaze, and Song Yang said, "This is the safety pendant that Luo Ling secretly placed on the windowsill after young foreign had rested. Young foreign had not discovered it." When Xie Jingxing heard it, his eyes slightly moved and he picked up the pendant with the dagger in his sleeve and threw it to Song Yang. "Keep it well." Song Yang was surprised for a moment before he heard Xie Jingxing continue. "The pet at home lacks a pendant. Song Yang." While Song Yang was speechless, Xie Jingxing had already opened the window and went in. On the bed in the room, Shun Miao was sleeping soundly. Xie Jingxing walked to the edge of the cliff and folded his arms as he looked for a while before raising his brows. "To be able to sleep, seems like one did not put my words to heart. You really have big guts." He sat down at the edge of the bed and casually picked up a cup of tea from the table in front of the window to drink before turning his head to look at Shen Miao's sleeping face. When the girl was asleep, she didn't have the usual dignified and calm sense of alienation. She shed all kinds of disguises and revealed her original appearance. Under the moonlight, her features were delicate and tender, which made people remember that she was a 16-year-old girl. They couldn't ignore this fact just because of the situation she was in and the means she had shown. Thinking of how he pinched Shen Miao's chin during the day, and how she tried her best to hold back her tears, Xie Jingxing's heart felt a little guilty. He reached out to push the messy hair on Shen Miao's forehead to the back of her ears, but saw that young lady's eyelashes slightly trembling. Xie Jingxing's hand paused as he looked down and saw that the body wrapped in the cup was trembling slightly. He was pretending to be asleep. Xie Jingxing raised his brows and simply sat closer. His hands were on both sides of Shen Miao's body as he leaned over slightly, and a magnetic voice sounded in the room. After helping so many times, why not repay me with your body? He stared at Shen Miao's eyes and slowly leaned over. Shen Miao's body was extremely stiff, and that breathing sound seemed to be at the side of her mouth, and the pressure from top to bottom was getting closer. She suddenly pushed Xie Jingxing away and wanted to sit up as she said angrily, "What do you want to do?" There was some panic in her voice. Chapter 739. Xie Jingxing then pressed her back onto the bed. Shen Miao struggled uneasily, and Xie Jingxing restrained her movements a few times before saying in amusement, "What do you think I will do to you?" He then looked at her critically. "Dream on." Shen Miao was so angry that she wanted to call Mo Qingyan to beat Xie Jingxing up. Because she only wore her inner clothes when she slept at night, after struggling with Xie Jingxing, her inner clothes had slipped off, revealing her snow-white shoulders, and one could faintly see the plum blossom doo-doo. Xie Jingxing was slightly startled when he saw that, and Shen Miao discovered where he was looking at. She was extremely angry and was about to scold someone. She saw Xie Jingxing suddenly throw the quilt and covered her head with it. Shen Miao stuck her head out from the quilt and said angrily, "Sick." Xie Jingxing ignored her and quickly wrapped her tightly in the quilt, wrapping her up like a silkworm pupa before pressing her down on the bed. Shen Miao could not move no matter what, and Xie Jingxing looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Shen Miao finally got tired of struggling and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Shen Miao, behave yourself." Xie Jingxing frowned. "With this prince here, who would dare to force you to marry?" Shen Miao was so angry that she laughed. "You will not stay in Mingqi for thousands or tens of thousands of years. There will be a day that I will marry. You can protect me today but not tomorrow. You can protect tomorrow, but there will be a day that you cannot protect." "If one can protect?" Xie Jingxing asked. Shen Miao was startled for a moment and did not speak. Xie Jingxing said, "Do you not care about marrying, or do you want to marry? What does that have to do with you? You ask too much." Shen Miao was still brooding over Xie Jingxing's rudeness in the day, and did not intend to talk to him properly. But after thinking about it, how did she look like a person who had become an empress? She was more like those young ladies on the streets. Thinking that she dilly-dallied with this person in front of her for so long, Shen Miao became very dissatisfied with herself. Her temperamental look fell into Xie Jingxing's eyes, and Xie Jingxing was very inexplicable. He turned over and pressed Shen Miao under his body. With one hand by Shen Miao's head, he asked softly, "Who do you want to marry? Luoling, Su Mingfeng, Feng Zixian? Or Pei Lang?" He got closer, and his handsome facial features were magnified in front of Shen Miao's eyes under the moonlight. He could smell the fragrant bamboo leaves on the other party's body. His eyes were extremely beautiful, but at this time they also had an aggressive meaning, as if he wanted to force out people's hearts. Being stared at by such a pair of eyes, it was as if all the hidden thoughts in the bottom of one's heart were exposed. Shen Miao's heart suddenly panicked. This distance was too close, so close that she could hear the thumping of his heartbeat. It was like the beating of a drum, but she couldn't tell if it was hers or Xie Jingxing's. Shen Miao did not want to lose control of her emotions and do something that she did not know about, so she quickly shrank back. Her back was against the bed beam, and Xie Jingxing reached out to protect her so that she would not hit her head. "This has nothing to do with you." Shen Miao quickly opened her mouth. "We only have a relationship of allies. Allies are meant to cooperate with each other. Does Prince Rue still want to manage my lifelong matter? Not to mention marriage, even if I give birth, divorce or be crippled, it has nothing to do with you at all. Xie Jingxing was rather angry when he heard the first half of her sentence, but when he heard the second half, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. What nonsense is this? Do you really want to be a crippled empress? One did not know how many times he had heard her say it was to be a crippled empress. Xie Jingxing could not understand. Could it be that Shen Miao did not have confidence in herself, that she must think of such a miserable ending? Normally she did not look like a person who had an inferiority complex. Shen Miao was so angry that she spoke incoherently. It has nothing to do with you. We are only allies. What right do you have to manage my matters? Xie Jingxing stared at her, and it seemed that the anger from her provocation was rising. He was originally a proud person, and to be despised by others again and again, there was no need to mention how sullen his heart was. He asked, allies. Shen Miao nodded her head. Allies cannot manage your matters? Shen Miao continued to nod her head. Xie Jingxing said straightforwardly, all right. He quickly leaned over and pecked Shen Miao's lips. Shen Miao was instantly stunned and saw that handsome purple-clad youth speaking in an extremely nasty tone. Now we are not allies. You. Shen Miao was unable to speak as her lips seemed to still have that gentle touch of a dragonfly touching the surface of the water. He laughed cynically. So I can take care of your business. Finishing, he stood up from the bed and looked at Shen Miao condescendingly and threatened, remember, in the future to marry, have children, divorce or be crippled, one must have this prince's consent. Finishing, he looked coldly at the windowsill before disappearing in a flash. Outside the room, Song Yang was forced to eavesdrop on the corner of the wall for half a day until his face turned red, but he did not dare to leave. When Xie Jingxing came out, Song Yang bowed to him. Xie Jingxing said, in the future when someone sends something over, just throw it away. He took the safety pendant that Song Yang gave him and left with an unhappy face. Chapter 740. This night, someone deliberately messed up a pond of spring water, causing flowers to bloom in the cold winter wind. Naturally, there were people who flew into a rage when their plans fell through. Prince Zhou's and Prince Li's residence fell into the same entanglement. That night, someone knocked on Prince Zhou's door. Prince Zhou thought that it was a servant and called out to enter, but no one entered. Prince Zhou got up to open the door and two cold corpses hit him in the face. No one knew how these two corpses ran to the residence of Prince Zhou. Prince Zhou flew into a rage and heavily reprimanded all the guards on night duty. He then carefully searched the room and suspected that there was a traitor, but at the end there was nothing. The two corpses were also found out to be the assassins that were sent to assassinate Shen Miao today. Prince Zhou's heart was uneasy and sent someone to pass a message to Prince Jing that night. Both brothers planned to study the matter. As for Prince Li's side, it was even more violent. Someone directly threw two corpses from the wall into the mansion, which scared the guards of Prince Li's mansion. The guards went out to chase, but they couldn't even find a ghost shadow. Finally, they found out that the two corpses were the assassins that Prince Li sent to assassinate Shen Miao. Prince Li was very upset and very uneasy. It was obvious that his assassins were killed, and it was equivalent to cutting off his path, so naturally they were his enemies. His enemies in the Ding capital were actually so skilled that the entire residence of Prince Li's guards could not catch one of them. Thus Prince Li was very dissatisfied. At the other end, the two brothers, Prince Zhou and Prince Jing, were talking. Prince Zhou asked, who do you think did it? Prince Jing pondered for a moment. Perhaps it was Prince Li, that's what I think too. Prince Zhou nodded his head. Perhaps he wanted to use this to threaten me, or perhaps he had the same thoughts as me. But Prince Li had always been amiable on the surface and would not do such a thing. Prince Jing shook his head. It might be the Crown Prince's doing. Crown Prince? Prince Zhou paused and nodded his head. All these years the Crown Prince claimed to be ill. Who knows if it was a smokescreen? None of us had seen his means before. If it was him who caused me and Prince Li to fight, then the Crown Prince would be able to reap the benefits. That's right. Prince Jing sighed. But you must not forget about number 9. Forget about old ninth. Zhou Wang waved his hand carelessly. Even if Lao Zhou's mouth is noisy, he doesn't have the guts. He doesn't walk around the court much, so how could he have connections? Since he could come to Prince Zhou's mansion to make trouble, his subordinate must at least be a master. Don't know why, but I always feel that number 9 is not as simple as he looks. Prince Jing said. You must not belittle him. In short, Prince Zhou sighed. This matter is not so simple. Whether it is Prince Li or the Crown Prince, they both came with bad intentions. I'd like to see who's behind this. Prince Jing nodded his head in agreement. Prince Zhou and Prince Li naturally did not know that the person who wrote off the assassins sent by them and returned them to the original state was not the Crown Prince or the other party as they guessed, but someone who had nothing to do with them. However, this method of diverting the trouble was really good. The battle between the princes of Mingqi unknowingly became more and more intense. As time went by, everyone in the Shen family was anxiously looking for a suitable candidate, but the imperial edict of the Mingqi's imperial family did not come. It was not because of anything else but because Emperor Wenhui was recently having a headache due to a matter. He asked the crown prince beside him, "What is the meaning of the Great Liang? Is it to go against Mingqi?" Zhen had never seen such an arrogant person before. Chapter 741. The Crown Prince also did not dare to speak. Prince Rui of the Great Liang made a trip to the palace and one did not know what he said to Emperor Wenhui. After Prince Rui left, Emperor Wenhui flew into a rage and smashed tables and cups, almost flipping the imperial study. The Crown Prince guessed that he had said something presumptuous, else Emperor Wenhui would not be so angry that he lost his composure. Emperor Wenhui's heart was indeed thundering with rage. He was clearer than anyone else about Mingqi's current national strength, and it was no longer as strong as when the old emperor was alive. Facing the slightly superior Qin country and the rich and powerful Great Liang, there was nothing to be proud of. In this tribute banquet, to put on such a large country's style, it was just to cover up one's guilty conscience, and to let the Great Liang and Qin country see that Mingqi still had some ability. It was just that this was a self-deceiving action. Huangfu Hao of the Qin country treated him with respect on the surface, but in fact he was not that good. Because of Princess Ming'an's death, till now he was still holding on to the people from the Supreme Court of Justice, and the Mingqi's officials were busy redressing the Qin country's princess grievances, and were not afraid of others laughing at them. But Emperor Wenhui did not dare to refuse. After all, he wanted to rope in the Qin country to deal with the Great Liang together. There was no need to talk about the Great Liang. This Prince Rui had his own way of doing things, and Huangfu Hao at least on the surface respected Emperor Wenhui. Prince Rui however did things his own way, and one could not see any respect for him. Emperor Wenhui kept comforting himself that this Prince Rui's temperament was like this, but one did not expect that yesterday when Prince Rui made a trip to the palace and talked in the imperial study, Emperor Wenhui had the intention to befriend the Great Liang, but was faintly rejected by Prince Rui. Even though he did not say it explicitly, but his attitude did not leave any face for Emperor Wenhui. Emperor Wenhui was after all the ruler of a country, and after losing face, naturally his face did not look good and sunk. Who knew that Prince Rui did not care if he would be angry or not, and casually mentioned the few cities at the border of Mingqi and the Great Liang, and his words implied that he wanted to take back the cities. Emperor Wenhui's expression immediately changed. Those few cities were not very big, but there were several mines in the cities. The ores that were extracted from those mines could be used to forge large weapons. The city was coincidentally at the border of Mingqi and the Great Liang. In the past, the Great Liang did not care about these and the people living in the city were all commoners of Mingqi. What did these words mean? This meant that the Great Liang wanted to occupy these cities. No matter how muddle-headed Emperor Wenhui was in other matters, he was very sensitive to every inch of land. Great Liang first seized a few cities, who knew what else they would seize afterwards. Now he had his eyes on these few cities and after a few more days, what would happen if he had his eyes on those cities and after a few more days, what would happen to the Ding capital? After a few more days, he might as well lead his troops to flatten Mingqi. With Mingqi's military strength, it was impossible to contend against the Great Liang. Prince Rui was the envoy that the Great Liang sent over, and also represented the intention of the Great Liang's Emperor Yonglu. Prince Rui's seemingly casual words revealed some of the ambitions of the Great Liang. What made Emperor Wen Hui's heart cry bitterly was that he knew the other party's ambition, but he did not dare to directly detain Prince Rui, this treacherous person, because he couldn't withstand Emperor Yongli's rage. If there was an alliance with the Qing country, there would be some confidence, but if it was only Mingqi alone, he could only endure. There was no dignity at all to be an emperor. And Emperor Wen Hui's heart was burning with anger. Who knows what the great Liang would do next with this ambition? You and Shen Miao's marriage is not urgent, Emperor Wen Hui said. Now Zhen cannot provoke Shen Exine as it is the crucial time. If Shen Exine were to be dissatisfied with Zhen, it would not be good for the great Liang to take advantage. Chapter 742. When the Crown Prince heard it, he was somewhat disappointed but did not say anything more. He was clear of Emperor Wen Hui's temperament, and the more it was at this time, the more one must go along with the other. Thus he said, "This son is not in a hurry and naturally prioritize the important matters. One did not think that the great Liang would have hidden evil intentions. We cannot relax our vigilance against them." Seeing the Crown Prince like this, Emperor Wen Hui was very pleased and patted his shoulder. "Zhen, no. Do not worry. Even though the great Liang has such ambitions, Zhen will not sit still and wait for death. Tomorrow I will talk to the Crown Prince about the alliance. The Qin country knows of the great Liang's ambitions, and will definitely be nervous. Forming an alliance with Mingqi is natural, and at that time, there is no need to fear the great Liang. Zhen will then personally issue an edict that the Shen family's military power and the Shen family's girl will be yours." In his words, he treated Shen Miao as an item, and was certain that it would fall into his pocket. The Crown Prince smiled and complied, but his heart was somewhat blaming Prince Rui of the Great Liang for saying these words to Emperor Wen Hui at this time. The timing was too coincidental. Prince Ding finally came up with such a brilliant plan for him, but it was thwarted by Prince Rui's words, making the Crown Prince's heart extremely uncomfortable. But there was nothing he could do. There was news from the palace that Shen Miao and the Crown Prince's marriage was temporarily suppressed. Even though one did not know what the reason was, Princess Rong Exine was also relieved. That day when she saw Shen Miao in the palace, she let her personal palace maid send Shen Miao out of the palace while she personally went to see Emperor Wen Hui. Emperor Wen Hui was still polite to Princess Rong Exine, and Princess Rong Exine said that she liked Shen Miao a lot and hoped that Emperor Wen Hui would dispel the decision of marrying Shen Miao to the Crown Prince. Who knew that Emperor Wen Hui immediately flew into a rage, and even said the words "females cannot discuss politics." Princess Rong Exine also had a straightforward temperament and said, "Isn't Shen Miao's marriage a female's marriage? How can it be involved with politics?" She immediately quarreled with Emperor Wen Hui, and at the end Emperor Wen Hui was angry and invited her out of the palace. That night, Princess Rong Exine's heart ailment acted up again. But it was fortunate that Emperor Wen Hui did not suspect why Princess Rong Exine would do that. In the beginning, when Shen Miao met her a few times, it was Princess Rong Exine who saved her. In the eyes of outsiders, they would only feel that Princess Rong Exine and Shen Miao were fated. Thus it was reasonable for Princess Rong Exine to treat Shen Miao specially. No one would have thought that the reason why Princess Rong Exine protected Shen Miao was because she was helping Xie Jingxing to look after Shen Miao. "That's good," Princess Rong Exine said to Gugu Yang beside her. Ben Gong thought that this time one would not be able to help her, and one's heart was very guilty. Now that it has been suppressed for the time being, there will be room to turn things around. This consort can go and give her a reply right now. Otherwise, I won't have the face-to-face Jingxing in the afterlife. Gugu Yang hurriedly advised. When the young marquis learns of the princess' painstaking efforts, he will certainly be gratified. As they were talking, they saw someone coming in from outside. The palace maid bowed and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, someone from the medical center has come to deliver medicine." Princess Rong Exine was slightly startled and asked, "Isn't there no more?" She had been suffering from a heart ailment for many years. She had a specific prescription for it, but there was an extremely rare and difficult drug in that prescription. There was only so much in a year, and almost all the medicine in the Ding capital's medical center had entered the princess residence. Originally, when Xie Jingxing was still around, one did not know where he got the means to go out to search for it. Thus Princess Rong Exine was not worried at all. Afterwards, when Xie Jingxing died, The medicine in the medical center returned to the previous situation where there was no tomorrow. In winter, the medicine was even harder to find. Princess Rongxian had been drinking the medicine that lacked the drug for a long time, and a few days ago she said that there was no more drug, but one did not expect that it would be sent over today. Chapter 743. The palace maid said happily. The physician in the medical shop said that yesterday there was a merchant that came from far away to sell medicine, and coincidentally there was a big basket of that medicine, so the medical shop took it all. Hearing from the physician that it was sufficient to last till next year. It is really a coincidence. Yang Gugu also followed and laughed. It is really good luck. Princess Rongxian waved her hands unconcernedly. Send it to the kitchen. The palace maid quickly complied, and after the palace maid left, Princess Rongxian then smiled bitterly and sighed. Originally when Jingxing was around, he would also send one basket of medicine after another. Why is it now a rare luck? Yang Gugu knew that she was thinking of Xie Jingxing and her heart was sad. Just as she wanted to change the topic, she heard Princess Rongxian said, "Help me to Xingji Courtyard." Yang Gugu was surprised for a moment. Xingji Courtyard was a courtyard in the princess residence. At the beginning, after Princess Yuqing passed away, Princess Rongxian was angry at Xie Ding's actions and brought Xie Jingxing to stay in the princess residence for a period of time. Xie Jingxing was born as white as jade, so Princess Rongxian specially ordered people to make a courtyard for him, which was Xingji Courtyard. Afterwards, Xie Ding brought Xie Jingxing back, and Princess Rongxian did not allow anyone to tear down Xingji Courtyard. After Xie Jingxing grew up, he would occasionally come to the princess residence to stay for a few days and rest in Xingji Courtyard. It was just that ever since Xie Jingxing died in battle 2 years ago, Princess Rongxian ordered people to seal up Xingji Courtyard, and other than the daily cleaning, no one was allowed to enter. She was also afraid of seeing things and never stepped into Xingji Courtyard, but today for the first time in 2 years she wanted to go to Xingji Courtyard to take a look. Yang Gugu did not dare to disobey Princess Rongxian's orders, and was somewhat worried as she supported Princess Rongxian to Xingji Courtyard. Princess Rongxian said, "One do not know why these few days, one keep dreaming of Jingxing." As she spoke, her expression became strange. Yang Gugu was somewhat puzzled when she saw it. Princess Rongxian's heart was somewhat uneasy. These few days she had a dream every night and dreamt of a purple-clad youth with half a silver mask on his face. She did not know who it was, so she reached out to remove the other person's mask. That person had the same face as Xie Jingxing but called her Princess Rongxian. It was the voice of Prince Rui of the Great Liang. Every time Princess Rongxian woke up from her dreams, she would feel that her back was drenched in sweat. She was thinking, could it be that day when she saw Shan Miao and Prince Rui's entanglement, because of the other party's little words, Xie Jingxing and Prince Rui were mixed together, to the extent that he was possessed at night? The more she thought about it, the more she missed Xie Jingxing and thought of going to the Xingji Courtyard to take a look. While Zhang Xian was deep in thought, he had already arrived at the Xingji Courtyard. The guards outside the courtyard were somewhat surprised to see her. Princess Rongxian had not stepped in here for 2 years and did not allow others to enter. The guards opened the way and Princess Rongxian and Yang Gugu walked in. The furnishings in the house were exactly the same as 2 years ago. Because it was cleaned every day, not a speck of dust fell. It looked brand new and clean as if it was yesterday. It made Princess Rongxian in a trance that when she turned around, she would be able to see that handsome and beautiful youth lying on the bed with his legs crossed, casually eating an apple. On the shelf were all the little toys that Xie Jingxing liked to play with since young, and on the chair were Xie Jingxing's old clothes. Princess Rongxian walked to the side of the clothes and picked it up. She reached out to touch the lines on it and reminisced. It is exactly the same as before. Yang Gugu did not know what to say and was afraid that Princess Rongxian would sink into the memories of the past and be sad. She said, "The golden thread on it is still brand new." Princess Rongxian laughed. Jingxing, this child has many rules. When he was young, one made colorful clothes for him, but he was not willing to wear them. He just liked purple. Bengong disdained that purple was old and heavy, and not suitable for a child to wear. One wanted to embroider flowers on it, but he despised it very much. Afterwards it was the embroidery lady in the palace who used golden thread to embroider dark lines on the edges of the robes before he was willing to wear it. Want to be gorgeous but do not want to wear it on the body? There are many crafty ideas. Chapter 744. Yang Gugu also followed and laughed. Little Marquis is noble in gold and precious in jade. Only little Marquis would look good when wearing it. When His Highness brought little Marquis into the palace, others thought that he was a prince. That appearance was like one of the imperial family's people. Even Yu Qing did not have this kind of bearing at the beginning. Princess Rong Xian also laughed along as she caressed the golden embroidered patterns on the corner of the robe. But as she laughed and laughed, she could not laugh anymore. Her expression gradually became serious. Just like what she and Gugu had said, Xie Jingxing was very picky about his clothes and loved to wear purple. He liked to wear gorgeous but did not want to be too ostentatious, and must use dark golden threads to embroider patterns on the corner of the robe. Because his requirements were high, the threads were very fine and the patterns were very special. But that day in the palace, Prince Rui, who was pulling Shan Miao, was wearing a purple gold robe and was pulling Shan Miao's hands upwards. The gold thread on his sleeves was exactly the same as what Xie Jingxing used to wear. Princess Rong Xian's health was not good but her eyes were not blind. That day when she saw Prince Rui and heard Shan Miao calling Prince Rui Xie Jingxing, there was a moment when she thought that Prince Rui was Xie Jingxing. But afterwards when she saw Prince Rui's demeanor and temperament, it was very unfamiliar, and after listening to Prince Rui's explanation, she dispelled this thought. But she always felt that something was not right, and after returning to the princess residence, she frequently thought of Xie Jingxing and Prince Rui. She had always thought that the reason why she was brooding over it was because Prince Rui and Xie Jingxing's words were exactly the same, but now it was clear in a flash that it had nothing to do with the name, but it was because she saw the corner of the other person's sleeves. After interacting with Xie Jingxing for more than 10 years, Princess Rong Xian treated Xie Jingxing as her own child, and a mother would always be especially concerned about the child's matters. Even if it was a small matter. She could clearly remember the pattern on the sleeves, but after Xie Jingxing's death, she had not seen this pattern for 2 years and could not remember it for a moment. But today she remembered that it was exactly the same pattern as Prince Rui. Some things were faded in the dark. Sometimes all that was needed was a primer, just like stringing all the scattered beads together, and everything would have an answer. The same love to wear purple, the same pattern on the sleeves, the same name Jingxing, and the same had a special relationship with Shan Miao. Princess Rong Xian suddenly remembered that basket of medicine. Why didn't he have it before? Why did he have it today? Was it because a few days ago she had a heart disease in front of Prince Rui, and in just a few days there were merchants that came from far away to sell medicinal herbs? If there were too many coincidences, it wouldn't be a coincidence anymore. Once the seed of doubt sprouted, there was no way it could grow back. It quickly sprouted branches in its heart and quickly grew into a towering tree, until it took root in the soil and stood there unshakably. Thinking about it now, at such a young age, Xie Jingxing had an indescribable air of nobility. One thought that it was because of his good upbringing, but did not know that perhaps it was because of the difference in blood. Even though his temperament and figure had changed, there were some things that could not be changed. For example, some small habits such as the connection between family members. Princess Rong Xian suddenly squatted down and pressed on her chest. Yang Gugu jumped in shock as she saw Princess Rong Xian's pale face, and large beads of sweat started to form on her forehead. He hastily shouted, "Guards! Call the doctor! The princess' heart disease is acting up again." A hand suddenly grabbed Yang Gugu's hand. Princess Rong Xian's face was in pain, but her tone was very determined. "Help me back to the study and bring an invitation over. She must personally verify one thing." "Oh." Chapter 745. When Shan Miao woke up, Luo Shuiyan happily told her that her marriage with the crown prince was temporarily suppressed in the palace. It was related to Prince Rui that Shan Xian got through the palace. One heard that when Prince Rui and Emperor Wenhui were chatting, they inadvertently mentioned the few cities at the border. Emperor Wenhui was worried that the Great Liang did not have good intentions, and at this critical juncture, he wanted to rope in Shan Xian, this strong general. Thus he would not mention Shen Miao's marriage for the time being. Luo Shuiyan said, Prince Rui's arrival is coincidental, but it has solved Jiao Jiao's urgent problem. With more time we can slowly pick out suitable talents for Jiao Jiao. Luo Shuiyan's words were unintentional, but Shen Miao listened attentively. Naturally she knew that Prince Rui did not unintentionally mention the matter of the cities and provoked Emperor Wen Hui to change his mind. At the same time that she breathed a sigh of relief, Shen Miao could not help but be secretly shocked by Xie Jingxing's methods. Xie Jingxing's methods could not be said to be brilliant, but it was very effective. Just a few words were able to provoke the emperor to hesitate and not dare to take action. The crown prince's marriage was ruined and Prince Ding's plans were ruined. It was really satisfying to shoot several eagles with one arrow. Previously when Xie Jingxing mentioned this matter, he did not seem to care about it, but he actually had this ability. Thinking about it, Shen Miao felt somewhat indignant in her heart. The dangerous situation that she found difficult was easily resolved in Xie Jingxing's hands, which made her seem incompetent. Her mind could not help but think of Xie Jingxing's frivolous actions that night, and could not wait to beat Xie Jingxing up. Luo Tan said, Youngest Biao sister, why are you clutching this book so tightly for? The pages are about to break. Shen Miao then recovered to her senses and quickly released her hands. She was somewhat embarrassed as recently when she thought of Xie Jingxing. Her emotions were somewhat out of control. It was all because the other party's actions were too unexpected that only she was brooding over it. Luo Tan held her chin with both hands and looked at her mischievously. Hey, are you thinking that Brother Ling, young Master Su, and Big Brother Feng are all very good and you can't decide which one to choose? Shen Miao said, thinking too much. Luo Tan still wanted to say something when she saw Luo Ling walking in from outside. Luo Tan stuck out her tongue and called out, Older Brother Ling. Luo Ling smiled. What are you all talking about? We're talking about my cousin's marriage. Luo Tan said loudly, Youngest Biao sister has not decided who to marry yet. I came over to inquire about the news. Shen Miao felt helpless in her heart. Could Luo Tan have a little bit of a female's tactfulness and say it out loud? It was fortunate that Shen Miao was someone who had seen the world. If it was an ordinary female, one would be embarrassed to death. Shen Miao did not have any reaction, but Luo Ling was somewhat embarrassed. He covered his mouth with his hand and coughed twice. Looking around, he asked, Younger cousin, do you like the safety pendant? Pendant of safety? Shen Miao frowned and asked, What pendant of safety? Luo Ling was surprised for a moment and said, It was me yesterday. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by the servants outside. After speaking, Luo Shuiyan asked Shen Miao to go to the front hall. Luo Ling swallowed the words in his mouth and smiled to let Shen Miao go first. Shen Miao smiled apologetically at him and said, I will speak to older brother Ling later. When one reached the front hall, one then knew that it was the people from the princess residence that came to the Shen mansion. It was said that Princess Rong Xian had sent an invitation to Shen Miao, asking Shen Miao to make a trip to the princess residence. Princess Rong Xian had saved Shen Miao several times and Shen Xian and wife were very grateful to her. Thus there was no reason to refuse. Shen Miao was even more unable to say anything. She received the invitation with a smile, but her heart was unusually heavy. If it was in the past when Princess Rong Xian sent an invitation to Shen Miao would not hesitate to accept it. In all fairness, Princess Rong Xian treated her well, and because of her relationship with Xie Jingxing, she took care of her. When she knew that Emperor Wen Hui had the intention to introduce Shen Miao to the crown prince, she still wanted to speak up for Shen Miao. Thus Shen Miao's heart was grateful. But Princess Rong Xian just had to send an invitation at this time. If it was about the matter of the crown prince, she would have directly sent someone to say it. To send an invitation to the princess residence, it was obvious that she wanted to discuss some matters face to face. But what matter was so important? Princess Rong Xian, who was so important that she did not see anyone, would take the initiative to invite Shen Miao to the princess residence? Shen Miao could not help but think of that day in the palace when she and Xie Jingxing were involved and were seen by Princess Rong Xian. At that time she called out Xie Jingxing's name and was later deceived by Xie Jingxing. But her heart felt uneasy. If it was a person who understood and loved deeply, no matter what the other party had become, there would always be some old traces to follow. Shen Miao's intuition had always been very accurate. She had never thought that Xie Jingxing and Princess Rong Xian would be able to hide safely. It was just that this guess was too scary and the consequences were unpredictable, so she did not want to think too deeply about it. But escaping was not a solution as trouble came to the door. Shen Miao felt that Princess Rong Xian might have found some suspicious points, but she was unable to reject this invitation because to reject was to admit it. Chapter 746. Princess Rong Xian's invitation was sent to Shan Miao on the afternoon of the second day. Luo Shuiyan also let Shan Xian prepare a bunch of gifts for Shan Miao to bring to the princess residence. Because Princess Rong Xian had helped Shan Miao a lot, Luo Shuiyan wanted to express her gratitude to Princess Rong Xian. In order to prevent any accidents on the road, Shen Xiu brought along many guards and Achi and Mo Qing also followed. Even so, throughout the journey, Shen Miao's expression could not be said to be relaxed. When Jingzhe and Guyu saw this, they thought that Shen Miao was worried about the safety of the journey and comforted her for a long time. In the carriage, Shen Miao kept thinking about how to deal with Princess Rong Xian's words upon reaching the princess residence. If Princess Rong Xian were to ask about Xie Jingxing's matter, it would dispel the other suspicions. But Princess Rong Xian was a very cautious person, and once suspicions were raised, it would be very difficult to eliminate it. Shen Miao felt a headache coming on. Jingzhe smiled. What is young lady thinking about to be so serious? This servant had not seen young lady like this for a long time. Shen Miao was slightly startled and was somewhat astonished in her heart. That's right, ever since she was reborn, she relied on the fact that she knew the path of her previous life, and her journey had been exceptionally smooth. Because of Luo Shuiyan, Shen Xian and Shan Qiu's matter, it was not particularly difficult to handle. As for other people, she would care about those that had benefits for her like Luing and Pei Lang, but what did other people's matters have to do with her? She was now racking her brains to think of an excuse for Xie Jingxing, but what was the relationship between Xie Jingxing and her? Was it necessary to treat him with such devotion? Shen Miao was somewhat annoyed with herself, and she also understood that she had a temperament that liked to get stuck in a dead end. There was a voice in his heart that said that this was all Xie Jingxing's own trouble, and should be solved by Xie Jingxing himself. The other voice could not bear for Xie Jingxing to deal with this troublesome matter alone. After all, to let Xie Jingxing reappear in front of Princess Rong Xian with an additional identity of Prince Rui of the Great Liang, no matter if it was Princess Rong Xian or Xie Jingxing, it was too cruel. Unknowingly, before Shen Miao could think of a countermeasure, the horse carriage had already arrived at the entrance of the princess residence. Almost all the servants in the princess residence had an impression of Shen Miao, so naturally they respectfully welcomed her in. Shen Miao let Mo Qing and the rest stay at the residence's entrance to help move the gifts for Princess Rong Xian to the storeroom. The palace maid brought Shen Miao inside, but he directly brought her to Princess Rong Xian's bedroom. Even though Princess Rong Xian's figure was not commonly seen in court and was usually very low-key, but the princess residence was after all spacious and grand. It was just that after the Fuma's death, Princess Rong Xian was widowed and did not care much about these worldly possessions. Therefore, the bedroom was simple and clean. The moment one entered, it felt a little cold and cheerless. Princess Rong Xian was drinking the sweet soup that was sent from the kitchen, and upon seeing Shan Miao arrive, she instructed the servants to scoop a bowl for Shan Miao. She smiled and said, "This is the new chef. He's very good at making desserts and sweet soups. I don't know if you'll be used to them. This palace's food is better than the ones in the palace. You should try it too." Shen Miao thanked Princess Rong Xian and picked up the bowl to taste. She did not really like sweets, but because of Princess Rong Xian she could not refuse. As she was eating, she was observing Princess Rong Xian's expression. Princess Rong Xian's complexion was much better compared to the day they met in the palace. Her face was much rosier and her mood seemed to be not bad as there was a smile on her face. Shen Miao said, "Princess's health seems to be much better." The medical hall had recently received a rare medicinal herb, and the kitchen had been decocting it for Bengong to drink. It would be difficult for Bengong's health to not be good. Princess Rong Xian sighed, "It is really luck. In the past it was not easy to find this medicinal herb, but one did not expect to encounter it at this time." There was a bit of surprise in her tone. Chapter 747. Shen Miao followed Princess Rong Xian's words, but her heart felt somewhat strange. Princess Rong Xian was not such a trivial person, and even if they were to chat, it would be interesting and insightful matters. This was her own matter, so there was no need to specially mention it to her. But Shen Miao was unable to understand the meaning of these words. She originally thought that Princess Rong Xian would ask about Xie Jingxing's matter today, but one did not expect that Princess Rong Xian did not mention it at all, and seemed like she did not intend to mention it. Instead, she changed the topic and talked about how Emperor Wen Hui suppressed Shen Miao's marriage a few days ago. Imperial older brother had always been stubborn and seemed to want you to be his daughter-in-law, even though Bengong felt that it was not appropriate. But that day after you left, Bengong personally pleaded with Imperial older brother and wanted him to dispel this idea. But Imperial older brother did not agree. Afterwards, it was all thanks to Prince Rui's blessings. She looked at Shen Miao and smiled. One think that General Shen had already inquired about the reason and told you about it. Shen Miao nodded her head and her heart secretly became alert. Even though these words are somewhat disgraceful, Bengong also do not hope that the great Liang would have any ambitions towards Ming Qi. But one have to thank Prince Rui. If it was not for his words, Imperial older brother would not have changed his mind. One fear that your marriage would not be suppressed like now. Shen Miao remained silent, as the more she spoke at this time, the more mistakes she would make. But she did not expect that Princess Rong Xian would suddenly pull her hand and said with a smile, "Previously Bengong saw that your relationship with Prince Rui of the Great Liang was not shallow. Bengong is after all older than you and have eaten more salt than you have eaten rice. It is also the same when looking at people. Prince Rui's identity is special, and Bengong thought that you are young and would inevitably be deceived. One did not think that he would be a loyal person, and this time he opened his mouth at this juncture. Bengong thought that it would be somewhat forced to say that it was intentional." Princess Rong Xian did not have such an attitude towards Prince Rui previously, and the difference was so big. Shen Miao became more cautious, but there was no trace of panic on her face. She only smiled gently and replied, "Prince Rui is a dragon and phoenix among men, and this official's daughter is a floating weed. Naturally, one cannot be compared. This official's daughter is also not so arrogant to think that Prince Rui would speak up for this official's daughter." This was tactfully denying the matter of having a close relationship with Prince Rui. "Bengong know that you are shy." Princess Rong Xian was especially stubborn today. Bengong will not say it out. Shen Miao still wanted to speak, but Princess Rong Xian turned her head to talk about other matters. Princess Rong Xian was especially excited today, and pulled Shen Miao to talk for a long time. Just like when Prince Rui was mentioned just now, Shen Miao thought that Princess Rong Xian would continue to inquire, but Princess Rong Xian turned her head and asked if Luo Shuiyan had any suitable young talents that Shen Miao could see. From noon till night fell, Princess Rong Xian did not have the slightest intention to end today's conversation and send Shen Miao back to the residence. Shen Miao was also somewhat unable to grasp Princess Rong Xian's meaning. Jingzhe and Guyu, on the other hand, wanted Shen Miao to return earlier, as it was not easy to travel in the dark and the carriage could not be seen clearly. But this was the princess residence. The princess did not speak and Shen Miao did not speak, so how could it be the two of them who spoke? When the last pot of tea was finished, Princess Rong Xian stood up and Jingzhe and Guyu's heart was slightly relieved. Thinking that it was rare for Princess Rong Xian to be in such high spirits today, it was not easy for them to return to the Shen mansion. Who knew that Princess Rong Xian affectionately pulled Shen Miao's hands and said with a smile, "Accompany me to the courtyard for a stroll." Jingzhe and Guyu's jaws dropped. This was the princess residence, and Princess Rong Xian had lived here for so many years. She would stroll around her own courtyard every day, but for no rhyme or reason when Shen Miao came over as a guest, she let others stroll around the courtyard. Moreover, it was so dark and it was very cold outside, so one was not afraid of catching a cold when strolling around the courtyard. Did all the princesses of the imperial family have this kind of quirk? Chapter 748. However, Shen Miao understood. It was obvious that Princess Rong Xian had ulterior motives and invited Shen Miao to the princess residence today. It was not just to have Shen Miao accompany her to chat. Princess Rong Xian definitely had her own plans. But Shen Miao could not refuse. She said, all right. Out of Jingzhe's and Guyu's expectations, the courtyard that Princess Rong Xian brought Shen Miao to stroll around was actually a side courtyard. In the dark of the night, there were no lanterns at the door, and one could not see clearly what was written on the signboard. Princess Rong Xian pulled Shen Miao into the room and smiled. This courtyard is called Xingji Courtyard. Shen Miao's heart thumped and knew what Princess Rong Xian was going to say next. Sure enough, when Princess Rong Xian entered the room, her hands fondled the little things on the shelf with nostalgia and said with a smile, "This is where Jingxing lived." Jingzhe and Guyu followed behind and were somewhat surprised when they heard it. The place where the little marquis of the Xie family stayed? Jingxing did not have a mother since he was young, and after Yuqing left, Ben Gong pitied him for having such a rough life at such a young age and hated the Marquis of Lin and for not staying at home, causing the inner courtyard to catch fire. Yuqing's life was bitter. Even before her death, she still had to be called a jealous woman. However, at that time, Madame Fong took advantage of a loophole and could not openly deal with her. Otherwise, Yuqing would be cursed in the underworld. At that time, Ben Gong was angry but also afraid that Fong Shi would use some other sinister method. So Ben Gong took Jingxing back to the Princess Fu to raise him. Jingxing has always been mischievous and is very close to me. I don't have a son of my own, so I thought that it wouldn't be a bad idea to keep Jingxing by my side. Later, I built the Xingji courtyard for Jingxing here. When Princess Rong Xian talked about these matters, she sighed. With her description, Shen Miao seemed to be able to see the appearance of a baby in swaddling clothes crying piteously for food. Shen Miao was fortunate that her parents were healthy and loved her very much. Even though they were estranged due to the instigation of the second and third household of the Shen family, it could still be remedied. But Xie Jingxing did not have a mother since he was born. In other words, when he was born in Mingqi's fake identity, he played a pitiful role and did not have a smooth journey. Jingxing was raised very well by Ben Gong here. The Marquis of Lin came over several times to ask for him, and even from Imperial older brother's side, Ben Gong still did not appreciate it. But afterwards Madame Fong gave birth to 2 sons, thus Ben Gong returned Jingxing. Princess Rong Xian turned and looked at Shen Miao. Do you know why? Shen Miao thought for a moment and said, because little Xie Marquis is the son of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and thus the residence of the Marquis of Lin and should be inherited by him. If the little Marquis were to stay in the princess residence, Madame Fong and the 2 Shu brothers of the Xie family would take advantage of it. Perhaps the position of the Marquis of Lin and would fall into the hands of the 2 brothers in the future. Princess Rong Xian smiled when she heard it. Ben Gong already knew that you are a penetrating person. When I was at your age, it was impossible for me to think of this. Shen Miao smiled and declined to comment. Naturally, a young lady who had never given birth to a child would naturally not plan for the child, so how would she look at it for a long time? But she was a woman who had given birth to 2 children. If it was Wan Yu and Fu Ming, she would also let them go back. It was something that belonged to one's child, so how could it be taken advantage of by others? Even though Jingxing had returned, but his relationship with Ben Gong is very good. It is said that blood is thicker than water. Ben Gong is afraid that after he and the Marquis of Lin get along, he would be provoked by vile people and would have complaints against Ben Gong and Yuqing. But what made Ben Gong surprised and gratified was that his relationship with the Marquis of Lin was not that good. No matter how the Marquis of Lin fawned on him, he would not be salty nor indifferent. Sometimes Ben Gong thought that he and the Marquis of Lin did not look like a pair of father and son, so how would there be the saying that blood is thicker than water? Chapter 749. Shen Miao's heart became heavy. The meaning in Princess Rong Xian's words was just too strong. Princess Rong Xian picked up a small mirror on the shelf and said, actually it is not that the Marquis of Lin does not look like a pair of father and son, and also not like Yuqing. The Marquis of Lin is a muddle-headed person but is somewhat indecisive and would not be clear on some matters, else he would not be schemed against by Madame Fong, that little slut. Yuqing is a silly one who wholeheartedly threw herself onto a man, and at the end was secretly hurt and even lost her life, letting her own child suffer for no reason. Jingxing's temperament was different from the both of them. Jingxing looked unbearably stubborn but was extremely decisive in doing things. Once he obtained a sword that was valued by his good friend. His good friend did not say anything, but he saw it in his eyes. Afterwards he said that he fancied his friend's mirror, and used his own sword to exchange. Bengong asked him, he obviously did not like that mirror, so why did he lie? But he told Bengong that it was because he also did not like that sword. He seemed to be very clear on what he wanted and what he did not want from a very young age. He would not even take a glance at things that he did not want and would firmly hold on to the things that he wanted from the start. He always smiled and was very likable to young ladies, but he did not have any special expression to any young lady. He was actually more indifferent than anyone else. Princess Rongxian stared at Shan Miao, and for a moment, Shan Miao felt that Princess Rongxian and Xie Jingxing were somewhat similar in some aspects, especially when they stared sharply at one, as if they could see through one's soul. That kind of oppressive feeling was once again displayed from this imperial princess who was no longer young. She opened her mouth and said, Bengong thought that perhaps the Marquis of Lineage was something that he did not need in his eyes, so from the start he did not have any kinship with the Marquis of Lineage, and Bengong always thought that Bengong was a person that he wanted to firmly hold on to, but now it seems that Bengong was wrong. Bengong was also a person that he did not need, right? That sentence of "is it right" was directed at Shan Miao. Jingzhe and Guyu had already been pulled out by Princess Rongxian's personal female official, Yang Gugu, and there was no one else in the room. Shan Miao quietly listened and said, Little Marquis has placed the princess in his heart. Shan Miao, Bengong know that you are exceptionally intelligent and good at guessing people's hearts. Therefore, there's no need to coax this consort. Princess Rongxian sneered. If one really put Bengong in one's heart, then why would one deceive Bengong with the news of fake death? Also, why would one see Bengong unable to sleep and feel uneasy after learning of his death? It was obvious that everything had been arranged from the start, but one wanted to deceive Bengong's trust and sincerity. It was obviously right in front of one's eyes, but one refused to acknowledge it and used a clumsy excuse. Shan Miao, tell Bengong, are you putting Bengong in your heart? When he said the last sentence, his tone suddenly became sharp, almost with a hint of anger. Shan Miao's heart sank. In the end he still knew, but she still could not admit it. There were many things that could not be said even if one knew what the outcome would be. Even if the evidence was conclusive, he couldn't say it. Princess Rongxian was the princess of Mingqi, and Xie Jingxing was Prince Rui of the Great Liang. Once this news was confirmed and she personally said it out, Shan Miao was unable to confirm what kind of change it would bring to the situation and how much trouble it would bring to Xie Jingxing. It was impossible for her to admit it so rashly, even if Princess Rongxian had already decided in her heart. She said, This official's daughter does not understand what the princess is saying. Princess Rongxian looked at her with contempt. The previous kindness and gentleness had disappeared, and what replaced it was a condescending look that could easily pinch an ant to death. That was the most common expression of the Fu family, and Shan Miao could see it every day. She suddenly felt a sense of disgust in her heart. It was not disgust at Princess Rongxian, but most likely she disgusted at the blood of the Fu family that flowed in Princess Rongxian's bones, causing them to have some similarities in some aspects. Princess Rongxian said, Do you know what is the crime of deceiving the imperial family? Chapter 750. The crime of deceiving the ruler. Shan Miao answered, colluding with the enemy to commit treason, the crime of deceiving the monarch. These 8 words are enough to have your entire Shan family beheaded and 9 generations executed. I'm sure you've seen what happened to Shen Wan. Do you know what you're saying right now? Do you know what kind of lies you're telling me? Shan Miao said, This official's daughter did not say anything. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin? Princess Rongxian's voice was filled with bone-chilling coldness. If Bengong wants you to die, it is an easy matter. If your answer today is not satisfactory to Bengong, Bengong only need to mention it to Imperial older brother, and what awaits your Shan family will be a disaster. Are you going to let your parents and brothers pay with their lives because of your willfulness? Shan Miao remained silent. Princess Rongxian slowly said, Now tell Bengong that Prince Rui is the Xie Jingxing who died in battle, right? No. The 2 firm words came out of Shan Miao's mouth without wavering. It was as if those terrifying threats from before were nothing but smoke and clouds, never leaving a trace in her heart. Shun Miao. Princess Rong Xan was furious. Bengong will let the Shun family be punished. You need evidence for everything. As long as I'm willing, I don't need evidence to punish you. Shun Miao almost sneered in her heart. The Fu family was just like this, so overbearing and domineering. Even if it was Princess Rong Xan who looked to be the most impartial, when faced with the matters that one wanted to know, one would not hesitate to use the imperial power to bully and humiliate. Humans are complicated, and humans are selfish. This princess will ask you again. Is Prince Rui Xie Jingxing? No. Princess Rong Xan almost flew into a rage. Normally she admired Shun Miao's calm and collected manner, but when this calm and collected manner was used to deal with her, Princess Rong Xan felt that she was facing a copper pea that one could not find any flaws. Normal young ladies would be scared with just a few threatening words, but Shun Miao was not afraid. Someone come. Princess Rong Xan's face sank. Give Shun Miao to me. Before she could finish, the rest of her words were swallowed back into her throat. A purple figure leaped in from outside the window. He had leaped in from the back window. There was no one guarding the backyard, so no one saw him. That person was wearing a dark purple brocade robe, and the golden thread at the corner of the robe was embroidered with a design that Princess Rong Xan was most familiar with. After he entered the room, he looked around unhurriedly and strolled over to Shun Miao. As if he was in his own residence, he stood still in front of Princess Rong Xan. Only then did she say lazily and unhurriedly, "She's timid, Aunt Rong, don't scare her." When Princess Rong Xan saw this person, she kept quiet and stood blankly at the same spot. When she heard the words Rongyi, she pointed at the other person and trembled so much that she could not speak. In this not very spacious room, the lights swayed slightly. That person played with the thumb ring on her thumb. She wore a half-silver mask. The mask glowed with a cold light, revealing her red lips with a slight smile. However, it did not make people feel warm at all. Shun Miao stared at Xie Jingxing in disbelief. She had never thought that Xie Jingxing would dare to appear at this time, and openly appear in the princess residence in front of Princess Rong Xan. One had to know that Xie Jingxing had died in the battlefield of the northern Jiang 2 years ago. If Xie Jingxing were to appear again, not to mention what kind of uproar it would cause in Mingqi, but if one were to add on the identity of Prince Rui spy, all kinds of infamy would be inevitable. How dare he? Chapter 751. Princess Rong Xan trembled as she pointed at him and asked, "What did you call Bengong?" The purple-clad youth in the room had a tall and slender figure as he slowly reached out to touch his mask. When the mask was taken off, one was able to see his outstanding facial features. Unparalleled beauty, beautiful bones and pine trees. That pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes that always had a bit of brilliance in them were full of amorous smiles, but the smile on his lips had a hint of ridicule. As a result, his flirtatious appearance was covered up, and a bit of indifference and pride slowly appeared on his face. An unfamiliar Xie Jingxing, a young man who was completely different from that dazzling handsome youth, but one could still see the shadow of the arrogance of a youth. It was just that now that arrogance was slowly suppressed and what replaced it was a kind of dangerous and terrifying sharpness. He put the mask back on but spoke casually and somewhat lazily, "Trust that you have been well, Aunt Rong." Princess Rong Xan was startled for a long time, and seemed to have recovered from the shock just now. She looked at Xie Jingxing and sized him up with a kind of unfamiliar gaze and said in an unclear tone, "Should Bengong call you Prince Rui or Xie Jingxing?" The alienation and defensiveness in those words made Shun Miao unable to help but be shocked. She had also thought about what kind of scene it would be if Xie Jingxing and Princess Rong Xan really bumped into each other, but did not think that it would be like this. The familial affection in the past was a scam and a joke, but Princess Rong Xan showed such hostility in this short period of time, which was really surprising. Xie Jingxing said, "Princess can do as you please. Did you send the medicine?" Princess Rong Xan asked. Xie Jingxing smiled but did not speak. Princess Rong Xan also smiled. Bengong would not dare to accept Prince Rui's things in vain. One think that the price of these medicinal herbs is not low. Later Bengong will let people send the money to the residence of Prince Rui. Many thanks, Prince Rui. No need. Xie Jingxing said. Prince Rui came here for. Princess Rong Xian's voice was polite and vigilant. It was not like she was facing a son who had come back from the dead. That was a tone that was completely facing a stranger and could even be said to be an enemy. She does not know anything. Xie Jingxing pointed his chin at Shan Miao and said, if the princess has any doubts, one can directly ask me. There is no need to make things difficult for her. How would I dare to make things difficult for her? Princess Rong Xian sneered, but her tone was somewhat complicated. It is good that it is not difficult. Xie Jingxing walked over and put his arm around Shen Miao's shoulders. He did not care about Shen Miao's expression and said, today's matter, this prince will personally visit another day to explain. If the princess has any dissatisfaction or misunderstanding towards this prince, there is no need to implicate others. His lips hooked up into a smile. Prince Rui's residence awaits any time. Finishing, he did not care about Princess Rong Xian's reaction, and walked forward a few steps and walked out the window. Shen Miao was shocked by Xie Jingxing's actions today, as she did not have any reaction when she was taken out of the princess residence. She had never thought that Xie Jingxing would dare to appear in the princess residence so brazenly, to reveal his identity to Princess Rong Xian, even though Xie Jingxing and Princess Rong Xian were like mother and son, but that was in the past. Xie Jingxing was now a greatly young person, and the difference in identity between countries would cause many things to change, especially when they were in such a delicate position. For example, when Princess Rong Xian saw Xie Jingxing today, Shen Miao thought that Princess Rong Xian would be hysterical and would question angrily or cry in pain. However, Princess Rong Xian's first reaction was to be on guard. Her sarcasm, quiet, probing, courteous, and did not make things difficult. With such restrained emotions, what was revealed was a fact. In front of Xie Jingxing, who had come back from the dead, Princess Rong Xian was more suspicious than happy. Princess Rong Xian's words floated in Shen Miao's ears. He seemed to be very clear about what he wanted and what he did not want from a very young age. He would not even take a glance at the things he did not want and would firmly hold on to the things he wanted from the start. He always smiled and was very likable to young ladies, but he did not have any special expression to any young lady. He was actually more indifferent than anyone else. Was it that Xie Jingxing knew from young that there would be such a day, so he attributed the kinship to the do not want part? It was not that he did not want, but that he could not afford it. Because even if he wanted it, there would be a day when he would lose it. Loved ones would become enemies and the once loving eyes would become on guard. Since it was so, it was better to be a stranger from the start. When there was no closeness, there would not be a moment of disappointment. Shen Miao's heart suddenly had a bad taste. Chapter 752. The wind at night was really cold, and Xie Jingxing only brought Shan Miao to the outside of the princess residence as the Shen family's carriage was still waiting outside. Shen Miao still wanted to speak, but Xie Jingxing's shadow had disappeared from her side. It was Mo Qing and Ah Qi who were somewhat surprised to see her suddenly appear at the residence's doors. Ah Qi asked, "Why did Miss come out alone? Where are the others?" Just as they were speaking, Jingzhe and Guyu ran out panting, and after seeing Shan Miao, they also gave a sigh of relief. Jingzhe said, "These servants were waiting outside. Yang Gugu said that you have come out, and this servant thought that she was lying. Later, when I saw that there was no one in the room, I came over to take a look. I didn't expect Miss to really come out." She looked left and right again and was confused. "But there is obviously only one room. We guards outside and didn't see when Miss came out. Could it be that there is a secret passage in the princess mansion?" Guyu hurriedly coughed lightly to remind her not to talk nonsense. This was after all outside the princess residence, and even if the princess residence had a secret passage, it was the princess residence's secret. How could it be spoken out so unscrupulously by them? Jingzhe stuck out her tongue and glanced at Shan Miao. Shen Miao's brows were tightly locked and her expression was somewhat grave. When Jingzhe saw it, she whispered, "Just now when one entered, Her Princess Highness' expression was not very good. Young lady, did you quarrel with Her Princess Highness?" Shen Miao shook her head. Thinking of everything that happened in the princess residence today, she felt that her head was about to explode. He climbed into the carriage and said, "Let's go back first." If there was anything, she would continue to think about it when she returned to the Shen mansion. After all, everything that happened today was really out of her expectations. Just as the horse carriage was about to set off, Shen Miao could not help but lift the curtain to look back. The darkness of the night covered everything and there was no moonlight, so nothing could be seen. She sighed softly. In a corner not far from the princess mansion, the purple-robed youth silently watched the carriage leave. Gao Yang's folding fan was no longer swaying lightly. Instead, it was folded and tucked at his waist. He looked at the handsome young man in front of him with a rare complicated expression. He asked, "Is it worth it?" "There will always be such a day," Xie Jingxing said indifferently. "Don't you feel it's a pity?" Xie Jingxing's lips curled up slightly. The mask covered his face and expression, but one could still imagine the slight ridicule, some disdain and cold expression. He said, "It's just fate." Gao Yang did not speak, and after a while, he shook his head and patted Xie Jingxing's shoulder. A few maids dressed as servants came out of the princess residence. They were holding a basket of something in their hands. They poured the contents of the basket onto the ground and threw the basket together with the basket on the ground. One of the maidservants said regretfully, "These things cost quite a lot of money. If we sell them in a medicine shop, we might be able to make some money. It's a pity to throw it away like this." "What do you know?" The maidservant at the side glared at her. "Who knows if this thing is poisonous or not? If it is, wouldn't it be troublesome to sell it? All right, stop looking. Let's go." The two maids turned around and returned to the princess residence. There was only a basket left on the ground. It was sent over by the medical hall earlier and very coincidentally, received the medicine for Princess Rong Xian's heart disease. However, at this moment it was thrown away like a shoe, and was even given the suspicion of being poisonous. Gao Yang's face was somewhat unbearable. One's heart would not be happy no matter how big one's heart was when one's efforts were wasted. He wanted to say a few words of comfort, but Xie Jingxing had already walked far away. He was dressed in brocade clothes and his figure was tall and straight as he leisurely walked in the night. His entire body was filled with an unstoppable elegance. It was just that back view was somewhat lonely. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.